I beat the Call of Duty campaign today,
Oh, cool. Yeah, sure.
and I beat Siphon Filter 3 yesterday as well. Um, Call of Duty campaign was I mean it wasn't great, but it was okay. It was a pretty standard Call of Duty campaign. Like it took itself very seriously. Even though it had some like goofy moments, it was just the problem I had with it was just it was very predictable. It was like the typical the guys turn on you, the general guy is shady, and it's basically like like a worse version of the original twist, I guess.
Yes,
Because
that's like the
because that was one of the
kind of the
best
problem.
in the moments in the whole franchise, if not the best. And then
Oh
this
yeah,
this one was like, eh. So
that's kind of like the problem with redoing stuff in that way is like it it's unless the thing that you're redoing
yeah,
is terrible, it's going to be hard to top it because you have the original quality of it plus nostalgia, and that's kind of an unbreakable
yeah.
mix.
It's kind of it's a weird reboot because like it's like the same characters. It's like it feels like it's a sequel. Cause it's like this, it's pretty much the same characters, just like more modern, I guess. I don't know, more like they just look
Yeah,
better. But it's like it feels like it's just a weird reboot. But I do
it's
like.
weird. Like it's
Go ahead.
see,
Yeah.
kind of putting all the issues that I have with it that I've talked about before aside, it just kind of feels to me like it lacks it sounds like a cop out kind of way of saying it. There's probably better ways to talk about it, but it's like it feels like a soulless version of the originals. Like it feels like such a surface level copy, you know?
You're right. Like that's exactly what it feels like. Sorry, my mic was low. That's why I was doing this. Sorry.
All right.
Hey, I'm all good now. Yeah, it does feel like it just feels like a worse version. It's like you might as well just made a new story. But it's like how many times? What can you really do in a new campaign, like a Call of Duty campaign? Like what different can you do? It's always gonna be like a terrorist or some some guy that wants to shoot missiles at somebody. It's like
Yeah,
that's the problem when you do
that is like
annual every. It's the problem when you do a campaign every year. It's like what more can you do in a military like storyline?
it's true.
Tears
I
for
think
Fears said it best. Everybody wants to rule the world.
Yeah, basically.
I mean they could do something like I mean they'll never do it, but like they could do something more interesting with their characters because it's not the story you tell, right? It's how you tell it. So
Right,
if they had
right.
like more interesting characters with more depth
Hmm.
and personality, then they'd maybe be onto something.
Yeah, I mean,
But they're
it's
never going to do that.
no, because they when they tried to make it futuristic, everybody hated it, and because they felt like too much like Halo. But like the same, but it's like I'm curious if if they would ever try to go like way back in the past, like maybe like the Civil War, or like Spanish American War, or something like some like obscure period, like the Wild West. Like I wonder if they would ever like try something like that.
That
But
would be interesting, yeah.
yeah, I mean I don't know how you can do it, but how do you make a good multiplayer out of that? In the Call of Duty
I
style, I
mean,
mean the Call of Duty style.
you know, you've seen how kind of how far they'll go to kind of monetize those games, like to push monetization out of them, like Call of Duty World War Two,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly, had like some stuff that should not be in a World War
Yeah.
Two, sure, just for the sake of like giving people things to pay for.
Right.
So like yeah, I mean they'd come up with something.
Have they ever done like a Vietnam Call of Duty?
No, but I really want them to. If I remember, well, I mean, there was some like Vietnam. If you're talking about like Apocalypse Now kind of
Yeah.
tropes, like yeah, there was some of that stuff in the original Black Ops, and I think maybe some like Black Ops 2 and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never kind of the focus. I really would like them to do that because I love that setting and all those tropes and everything. Um, but I think at some point I might be wrong, but I might be misremembering. But I think at some point Sledgehammer was started working on like a third-person Call of Duty game that was set in Vietnam. Um, but when they pitched it to Activision, they didn't take it.
Yeah.
But that would have been interesting.
it's just one of those things where it's like they make so much money. It's like why even bother to do something different when you can just like copy and paste the same game for the most part, which is a shame, but it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, overall, like I liked it a lot better than what was it, Vanguard's campaign, but that's not really saying much. So
yeah, it's not a high bar.
Yeah, so,
I can even that campaign was not even good enough to convince me to play past the first mission.
You're right.
I just completed the first mission and I was out.
Right. So overall, I thought it was entertaining. I had fun with it. It was stupid fun. Like I wasn't like bored or anything, but I wasn't like super emotionally invested or in. But like by halfway through it, I was like watching watching a video while I was playing the game. Like I was just not interested in the cutscenes and the story.
Yeah.
It was just
Did
so
you like
generic.
play at least?
Yeah, the gameplay was fun. Like the visuals were great and the audio was amazing and stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, the story itself was meh. I mean, it's just like how many times can we do like the Russians, the bad guys, and you know, it's just so overdone. Anyway, let's just get started now. So we're on episode 7 of the Lounge. I'm your host Sebastian. I am joined by James and Dory. Mitch is not here; he had to work tonight, so we're gonna be a little short today. And hopefully we're gonna be on a shorter episode because the last 2 episodes were like 3.5 hours, 4 hours. So my goal is for us to not be that long. But I want to jump right into the Metal Gear Solid remake rumors. Apparently, the rumors say that we're getting a Sony conference, like a PlayStation conference, in February or March. That's going to show third-party games, and that's where the Metal Gear Solid remake is supposed to be shown. And there's been a lot of there's a lot of smoke to this rumor for the last couple of years, and more like hints and details are starting to like emerge. Like it seems like something's building up to something. I don't know if it's gonna be a remaster of Metal Gear Solid or like Rising, like Revengeance or anything, or if it's gonna be a remake. We don't know, but it seems like Konami is getting back into gaming more than ever. Like they're getting all the Silent Hill, they're doing all these crazy things with Silent Hill. And now they're doing all the I can see them bringing Metal Gear Solid back. Now is Kojima involved? I don't know. Probably not, but
I would doubt it. I would severely doubt it.
I would guess maybe they talk to him just to see what maybe get some bullet points from him or any advice, or I'm sure they reached out to him in some way. I don't know if he still has bad blood with them or not. I don't know. Same people are in charge. I don't know, but either way, I'm very excited about this. Depending on a lot of things, but it's about time we get a new Metal Gear Solid game that actually is actually trying to be a good game, because the last one we got was that zombie one. I forgot the name of it. It was so bad.
Oh, Metal Gear Survive.
Survive, yeah. It was so bad.
Yeah.
So there's so much uncertainty to say I'm hyped for it, but I'm definitely super interested. This will actually be the 3rd remake of Metal Gear Solid.
Is the rumor that it is specifically a remake of the first game?
Yes, and it's said to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive.
Okay.
So people were speculating that this is the Blue Points game that they've been working on, but I don't know.
It could be. I could see that.
I could see that too. I mean, at this point, they're probably the best at remaking games, so I would think Sony would want a marquee game like Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid, when we think of Metal Gear Solid, we associate it with PlayStation. It's just
this would be a bit of a departure for Blue Point, I think, though, because up until now their remakes have been kind of one-to-one, like the gameplay and like the camera angle and everything has always been the same. But with this one, I would assume they would turn it into like a third-person, more Metal Gear Solid 5
You'd have to,
style.
Especially if you're looking at the first and second, you'd have to do a lot of reworking. The third and the fourth, I think you can get away with not doing a lot of reworking at all. I played both those games within the last 5 years. They both really hold up, in my opinion. I've actually never played the first or the second. I've seen people play it, so I mean, I know the general vibes. But yeah, I think it would be very interesting. They'd have to redo some portions of 1 and 2 because the stealth system hasn't aged. Certainly not in the first one. In the second one, it's better, obviously. But
yeah, I don't think the gameplay ages well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you would have to do a more modern style as a game to appeal.
You'd have to like Resi to it. Like you'd have to some extent, you'd have to Resi to it.
Right.
What is that boss fight where you have to use the sniper rifle?
Oh right, with the person in the snow or something.
Yeah, and like you have to use the D-pad to control. Oh man, it's like I played it a couple of years ago, and it's just torture.
Yeah, yeah,
It
that's
doesn't. Yeah.
yeah.
Although
It's a lot better in Metal Gear Solid 4 where they pay tribute to it, but it's
i-
not as good in the original.
if I had a choice, I would love to see Metal Gear Solid 3 remade first.
Yeah.
Because that's like my favorite one.
Honestly, it doesn't chronologically come first anyway.
Yeah, it's the first game.
So yeah, and I think it's one of the most popular ones. I mean, I'm not sure if 3 or 4 is the most popular game within the series, but I feel like
I'd
those
say
are like
three.
top contenders.
Out of those two, probably three. I think.
Yeah,
I think 3 is bigger because 4 came out like it was exclusive to PS3, and I know like PS3 had a lot of problems at that time. Like
Yeah.
360 kind of just destroyed it for a while.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 4
Yeah.
kind of got like overlooked. Even to this day, I don't think they ever like it's not even on like it's never been on PS now or PS
Yeah.
Plus. It's like it's only on PS3. You can't play it anywhere
Yeah.
else besides like an emulator.
I'm glad I was able to play it on. I can't remember if it was PS3 or 4. I think it was on my PS3, but it could have been 4. But one of the two, I was lucky enough to be able to play it, and I mean,
Yeah, I'm saying
I
you couldn't
still
even
think
play it
the
on
game's great.
PS4. I don't think it was on anything. You had
So
to
yeah,
play it
missed
on.
on PS3.
You had to play it on
Yeah.
the PS3 in order to play it. I could be wrong, but I remember it. They never like put it anywhere else. I don't think.
Yeah, wasn't that the whole hardware issue with
Mhm.
PS3 had specific? I still don't understand why Sony did that. They suddenly switched the basic hardware that allowed backwards compatibility for the PS3,
Yeah.
and then the PS3 was like not a huge failure, but I mean relative to the PS2, I mean, and even the PS4. I just feel like the PS3 is such a odd one.
Yeah. The only good thing about one of the good things about PS3 was that like because they were losing in America and stuff that they got to do all these experimental stuff and they kind of did like what Xbox is doing now where they're trying all these different things and people argue
Yeah.
that that's a better PlayStation because they were doing all these different genres of games. They were all like unique from each other at the time and because they had nothing, they felt like they were playing like they had nothing to lose kind of thing. Or like when they're in the market leader, they don't have to try as hard, or they're not try as hard, but they can make like God of War and Horizon, Days Gone, like because those are all Spider-Man, because those are all like third-person action games. And that's like their
Right.
biggest sellers. So people argue that like they were better in PS3 days when they were like losing and they had to like punch back and try to do all these crazy experimental things. That's when
Right,
because
I
that's when
mean-
you got all those crazy commercials and stuff. If you remember correctly, with the baby and stuff. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fighting from underneath, even if you're a massive corporation like Sony, can lead to really creative and interesting things. I mean, I really feel like if Microsoft wasn't like kind of like the second or third in terms of like gaming companies, I'm not sure where you rate Nintendo, generally speaking, because they're always doing their own thing. But if Microsoft wasn't like not number one, I feel like we might not have gotten Game Pass. It wouldn't have risked that, or at least
Absolutely.
it wouldn't be as likely.
If their games sold as well as Nintendo or Sony, they would not have done Game Pass.
Yeah.
The games are just not selling. Xbox has been third place every generation, and I'm not saying that's an insult to Xbox because I've had every Xbox console there's ever been, but it has always kind of been the third wheel of
Yeah,
the
for
industry of the big three. I mean,
Yeah, I had an Xbox. I had a 360. Like I loved both. I mean, Halo is forever one of the goats of gaming. So like,
yeah.
but I think it's pretty hard to dispute that Xbox, generally speaking, is in third place, at best second.
Yeah, well, in the 360 days, they were not number one because the Wii was just a monster. But
Right.
if we're talking the third person space, like the third person action games, the Call of Duties and the Fortnite, not Fortnite, but Call of Duties and the Maddens and the FIFAs and all that.
Right.
It's a two-way race, right? And Xbox dominated that one in the PS3 days because they had all the exclusive deals. They had the marketing rights with Call of Duty and things like that, and then they just totally screwed up their launch of the Xbox One. That launch was that bad that it totally destroyed all their momentum. And then PlayStation, they had Last of Us came out late in the gen, and they had all this momentum, and they built on it. And yeah, like the Xbox One generation was really bad. Like they had no games for years. Like they really struggled. Like Phil had to do so much work to turn that place around. They still. I mean, last year was not the best year for Xbox. They had very limited exclusives. They had a lot of cool indie games. Don't get me wrong. like Pentiment's great and stuff, and Immortality was good and stuff, but it's like they didn't have any big hitters. They didn't have a God of War Ragnarok, and
I really feel like Game Pass is what saves Microsoft right now. But
yeah, I mean, might as well transition to the next topics. Xbox should have a big year this year, hopefully. I mean, we've been saying that for almost a decade now. That
by the way, folks, we planned that transition. That was all incredibly intentionally planned.
Yes. Because this year we're supposed to get Redfall and Starfield.
Right.
And only just this year, but they're supposed to come out in the first half of the year, I believe. And they've been hyping Starfield, next Bethesda game. We haven't had a major Bethesda game since Fallout 4. If you exclude Fallout 76.
I've heard folks talking about how they're positioning Starfield to basically be their next Halo, which makes a lot of sense after Halo Infinite kind of... I mean, it was a success, but I feel like it was a very limited success. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I hear a lot of people talking about Halo or them excited for the future. But yeah,
I'd argue, I wouldn't say it's a failure, but I feel like it's been a black eye for them right now. It's been a blemish because I don't think Microsoft's happy with 343's handling of Halo overall.
Yeah,
and then the layoffs and stuff. So
a lot of fans aren't. So
yeah,
I don't quite understand that, because I could have sworn when Halo Infinite came out that everyone loved it.
Well, I think the problem was initially the first couple weeks it was fun. It was like Halo's back, but there was just no content for a long time, and that soured.
And I kind of understand that, but at the same time, I appreciate the balls that it takes to, in the 2020s, release a game that doesn't require the same kind of commitment as a marriage. A game that's not like a shooter that is not a full-time job. I respect that, and I really like that. That's what that game is, because I already have games like that. So I like having one that I can just jump in, that doesn't have constant content updates. I can just jump in for a match when I feel like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I enjoyed Halo, but I think I enjoyed it for all of what felt like 5 or 7 minutes, and then I was like, yeah, it's just Halo. I feel like I was literally playing Splitgate. I think Splitgate lasted 2 weeks for me, and Halo lasted a day or a session or something. It didn't help that, for me anyway, I think this was a personal issue, but getting into parties with friends felt like a challenge or an ordeal. I don't know if it was the servers or it was me or I just didn't know how to operate with Game Pass yet because I hadn't used it much. But whatever the reason, it was a pain in the ass to get on games on Halo. And then I also had to figure out how to move around with a controller because I couldn't figure that part out either at the time. So for me, it was just not a total bust. It was still fun, but I played it for a night and I was like, yeah, Halo's back. Cool. And then I went back to Splitgate or whatever I was playing at the time.
The game just wasn't ready. Even though it got delayed, you can tell it still needed another year in the oven. They couldn't launch with no major game like Halo. They had to get it out there.
It had the Call of Duty problem too. Nobody was talking about that campaign, at least not to my knowledge. Most people were talking about the multiplayer and how fun it was, and it was fun. Nobody was talking about that campaign and the lore.
I just don't like 343 overall. I don't like their games. I think, to me, the first 3 Halo games are just incredible, and then 4 or 5. I just don't like 4 and 5 as much.
Yeah,
the first 3 are just masterpieces in their genre.
Yeah,
and they're just not Bungie. Is really what it is. They just don't.
Yeah.
I don't think they have the same talent as Bungie. And I think they've been poorly mismanaged. I think
it's sad to say, but honestly, the closest you're going to get to what folks want from Halo these days is probably what Bungie's doing right now with Destiny. I mean, Mitch isn't here to sing the praises, but I mean, they're doing a lot of what 343 wishes they were doing. I mean, Destiny's been super successful for them.
I guess Halo Infinite should have been more like Destiny, where it was more like an MMO shooter, rather than just make it a typical multiplayer shooter when you're running around and shooting.
Yeah.
They could have done something different, I guess, but I guess it is a failure because the views on Twitch and stuff, it's just been atrocious. And their player base just hasn't been there as much anymore. Halo, Halo is a marquee franchise, but I don't think Halo is the household name it used to be anymore.
The thing is, I've got to disagree, right? Because I think maybe from like a business standpoint, it's a failure because it's modern times and multiplayer games are expected to have this long life for years and years. But I mean, I think the fact that the game came out and it was fun, even for a brief moment, I think that's a success.
I don't even think I would call it I think it's more of like it just didn't live up to what they probably wanted. But like it's probably more of a disappointment for them than a failure, like an outright failure. Like
sure,
because Halo's supposed to be the marquee mascot franchise. It's like if a Mario game was a total bomb for Nintendo, I guess. It'd be like if the next Mario Kart game came out and it sold like 1 million and everybody hated it. No, I mean, I just don't think Halo is what it is anymore. Like it's just not it's not the household name. It's a different era. Like back then, Halo was like, it was on the I don't want to say it was on Fortnite's level, I guess, but it was like it was there. It was like the game everybody wanted to play. And now a lot of my friends didn't want to play Halo because I guess most of my friends played PlayStation more anyway, but. So no one's really looking to play Halo, but it just doesn't have the same like hype as like Halo 3. Because I was in high school when Halo 3 came out, and that's all everybody was talking about. It was like the marquee game. If you weren't playing World of Warcraft on the PC, you were playing Halo 3 on Xbox. It was just what everybody was talking about. And now, but we live in an era now where Fortnite and Minecraft and people play Roblox and all that stuff. It's just a different era, and I hopefully they figure this out, but I don't think Halo's gonna be in the file cabinet for a while, and they're gonna have to figure something
on
out.
the topic of like Starfield, like I haven't seen a damn thing that has really interested in me, like has made me want to go, wow, this is a game like I want to play and like I really want to experience for myself. I mean, we've seen a little bit of gameplay, but it just kind of looks like. And I know this sounds like such a cool premise, and it is a cool premise because it's a 5-second elevator pitch, Fallout in space. I mean, that sounds really cool from a person who hasn't played any of the Fallout games. I'm sorry, it sounds cool.
We basically already got that in Outer Worlds, like that. Outer Worlds.
That's true.
Outer Worlds is just Fallout in space, but
yeah. And I have to say, as somebody who has played only the 2 most recent Fallout games. Fallout in space is not a good pitch. It's actually quite a concerning pitch. For me, anyway.
I guess if you're thinking about like if I think about like Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3 or something in space, like I guess that more specific. But yes, Fallout 76 in space would not be a very pleasing idea.
Even Fallout 4 in space, I shiver at the thought.
Shudder the.
Which is funny because Fallout 3. You do go in space, like in a DLC, like you fight aliens.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, Fallout 4. I think Fallout 4 is a good game. I just don't. The problem is it just didn't live up to New Vegas and 3 for me. And I think a lot of people had a problem with it because the dialogue that was voiced by a character, and people prefer to have a silent protagonist so they can add their own voice in their own, like in their head, like whatever the character sounds like in their head. It kind of ruins the immersion for them.
The thing is with Fallout 4, I mean, I enjoyed Fallout 4 when it came out, but even in 2015, that kind of engine and the way that like those games feels very dated, even for 2015.
Totally agree. When I say this nowadays, people are going to assume like, oh, you're just mad because Microsoft owns Bethesda, but Bethesda was one of my shit lists for a while. Like they were one of my favorite companies by far, and then the last 5 years they were just making all these anti-consumer decisions. They were just, it wasn't charming anymore to have a buggy game. I was over the whole it's just part of the charm, and then have PC players fix the game for them. So if Starfield is like just a buggy mess again, I'm not accepting that. Like, oh, that's just part of the Bethesda charm anymore. I'm so tired of that. Get a new engine already. That's what's keeping me from being like over the moon for this game, because I love Bethesda games generally. I love Elder Scrolls and Fallout. I'm a giant Fallout fan. I have the Vault Boy guy right here, and it's like, And so it's been what 8 years since we've gotten a legitimate game like that from Bethesda, and the game still looks like a game that came out in 2015. I was not impressed by the visuals, even though
The visuals didn't look particularly good. The gameplay looks kind of bland.
looks like
I mean,
looks like
I
the
just
same from
don't.
2015. It looks the same.
Yeah, I just don't see the appeal of Starfield, which is bad news if I don't really see it because it's supposed to be their flagship or their new flag bearer or whatever. I mean, things are so bad for 343. They like literally released a Twitter statement today. I don't know if you all saw this like a couple hours ago, but it was like the most generic, like, hey, Halo is here to stay. It's going to keep going. We're going to keep making awesome Halo games or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, a company that is not in trouble with its fans or community probably wouldn't need to say this. It's worse than saying nothing. And I think also it has to do with the layoffs. We won't get into this topic too much, but the layoffs that have been affecting the gaming industry in the past week have just been horrific for a lot of people. But yeah, James.
They didn't just say that. They put out that tweet because, there's a lot of kind of hatred towards them. They put out that tweet because there was rumors that they were being moved off the franchise.
Yeah, some people were saying they were doomed and stuff. So I guess they wanted to address that, but it just felt the statement feels a little lackluster itself just because it's so generic. But I mean, I guess it's nice to reassure the fans that they're not going anywhere. But I don't know.
I'm not sure that I would buy that anyway because that Microsoft would get rid of 343 on Halo because they would they wouldn't have given Halo Infinite like the marquee. There was supposed to be the marquee big game of the Series X to 343 if they didn't trust them. So I don't really believe that.
And I think Microsoft. I mean, maybe some people aren't happy with Halo Infinite, but I think Microsoft is.
Yeah, I'm sure they're a little disappointed that it wasn't like what they. I mean, they were probably expecting it to be bigger than it was. But
yeah, I mean, they'll be disappointed, no doubt, that it doesn't have the tail that they thought it was. But I think the quality of the game is, I mean, definitely enough for them to let 343 keep working on Halo.
Yeah, like I said, it did have problems when it came out. It did feel like it was rushed, and it had graphic performance problems, and they had to, remember they had to blow it up and start over again, and then Microsoft probably rushed it out the door because they needed to have a marquee game for that fall. So,
I guess, but they also, I sound like the Xbox apologist at the moment, but they also delayed the game for a full year away from the Series X launch.
Right, as I'm saying, it's still not ready.
It still wasn't ready. But my point is like. They did. I think. I don't think that Microsoft rushed it out the gate because if they wanted to rush it out the gate, they wouldn't have delayed it a full year away from their new console launch.
I get you.
I appreciate the fact that it was still a bit broken on release, but I played the campaign on release and I still had a ton of fun personally.
Yeah, it was in my top 10 games. Like I really liked the campaign, and the multiplayer was fun enough. And now looking back on it, would it still be in my top 10? No, but because I played other better games after that came out that year, but still it was still a good game. I thought I had fun with it. Like so, I can't trash the game. I had fun with it. I don't have no agenda. I really, whether Halo succeeds or not, Halo's always gonna be special to me because I grew up with it, but I'm not emotionally attached to it anymore like I was.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just been negative for Halo just because the show was a huge disappointment. Everybody pretty much hates the show, and then I think Halo Infinite has been negative thing after negative thing for a lot of people. So Halo just hasn't found like a positive place in a while. It's just kind of been in the darkness. So hopefully they find like a little beacon of light and then something clicks and Halo comes back to what it was, or at least to a decent place, because it's just been negative thing after negative thing for feels like the last 2 years. But anyway, the reason why I'm excited for Starfield is just that the gameplay doesn't have to be like Doom Eternal, but if it's decent and the story is great and the narrative's great, like the dialogue, I mean, like the choices and things like that, I'll really have fun with it. I love that about Fallout and Elder Scrolls is just the decision, the different narratives you get, the dialogue choices, the RPG elements. That's what excites me about Starfield, and I'm really excited to have like a game like that in space. Like that's why I really liked Outer Worlds, because it captured that same magic as the Bethesda games, just better because Obsidian's a better developer than Bethesda in my opinion. They have the best Fallout, and actually both times they had the better Fallout. If you count Outer Worlds as a Fallout game, because it basically is. So I'm just excited about like I said, I'm excited about that stuff. Like I'm itching for another game like that with the first person explore wherever you want feeling. So I don't think Starfield's gonna be like a 95 on Metacritic and it's not gonna be Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild, but I think it's gonna be at least, like probably in the 80s. It's probably gonna be a pretty good game. I don't expect like a masterpiece, but I expect like a pretty good game.
Also, if it flops, then the good news is for you, Outer Worlds 2 is still coming.
Exactly. And
I'm very excited for that.
Obsidian's still doing Avowed too as well. So there's.
What's Avowed again? I can't remember what that one is.
It's similar. It's like Elder Scrolls.
Oh, okay. That's right. That's what I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah, we've got nothing about it in a while. We're not.
Yeah, it was just that CG trailer. There's not been anything since then.
Yeah, but apparently it seems like it's coming like close. If not this year, it's next year. Like it doesn't feel like it's super far away. Like Elder Scrolls 6 is not coming out until like when I'm 40, but Avowed seems like it's coming out. I don't think it's gonna come out this year, but it could be. But I think it's gonna come out next year. It just feels too much the same to have Avowed and Starfield in the same year. I don't know, but anyway, so we talked about Starfield. I don't think any of us are like super hyped for it, but so we probably move on. Do you guys have anything more to add about Starfield?
Not really. I hope it's good. I hope it's great. I think more good video games is good. Hot take, everybody. But I'm not particularly excited for Starfield.
Yeah. No. Yep. So let's talk about Redfall. I think Dory and I was talking about Redfall like this week. We were saying like it's probably not going to be an amazing game, but it's probably going to be really fun to play with your friends. Like,
it's big like Back 4 Blood feels where it's like I don't think I'm gonna particularly like remember or enjoy playing this game, but in the moment when we do get to, because it's gonna be on Game Pass, which is awesome. I think when we all get together and play it and fight some vampires, I think it's gonna kick ass. I'm gonna have a lot of fun, but it'll be lucky to be like number 10 on my top 10 or something.
Yeah, I'm more excited for Redfall than Starfield. I think because I guess I trust Arcane more than Bethesda, current Bethesda. If this was Bethesda like 10 years ago, then I wouldn't say that. But Arcane's a more consistent studio or developer.
Yeah, that's the thing, really. Do I need to play Godfall to understand Redfall?
If you can avoid playing Godfall, I recommend it.
That's right.
Okay. But yeah, no, Redfall. I mean, yeah, pretty much what Dory said. Like, it looks like another fun co-op shooter, right?
Yes.
And I mean, I think the gunplay in Arcane games is an underrated element of them. Like, it's always been quite solid. So I mean, yeah, I mean, if they can translate that into a co-op shooter like this, I think this could be a dark horse.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Like I said, I'm more excited for this because the multiplayer looks so much fun, and I just hope that it's not. I just hope it's not like a generic, typical. Just like I don't want it to be another like Left 4 Dead where it's like, or Back 4 Blood where it's just like you do like a thing, you have fun with it, and then you're kind of over it in like 15 minutes. Like Back 4 Blood's great. I mean, not great. It's a fun game to play. But it's not memorable at all. Like I don't like.
Right.
We have fun with it for like an hour when we play, and then we kind of just like we move on from it.
Yeah, we played it. We played it like last week or this week or whatever. Yeah. And honestly, I don't remember what fucking week it was.
It doesn't have the magic of like Left 4 Dead, where like Left 4 Dead, when it came out, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, like it was so memorable. Like my friends and I played it all the time, and it had a lasting impact.
Yeah.
And Back 4 Blood just didn't capture the same magic. But
for sure.
So Redfall doesn't have to, because this is the cool thing about Game Pass is if Redfall doesn't have to be a masterpiece because it's going to be on Game Pass. So it's like
exactly.
I'm not spending $70
I had completely forgotten that Redfall was even coming out until we talked about it. And then when you said it, I was like, I think that's the vampire game. And I only thought that because it was like red is in the title, and that makes me think of blood, which makes me think of vampires. So that's the only reason I even remembered it. Because I when we talked about it, I remembered watching the Xbox showcase, which is still chef's kiss, like one of the best presentations of video games I've ever seen back when we watched it. And I remember Redfall was one of the few things in that showcase that kind of was underwhelmed me or whelmed me. I don't know, like somewhere between underwhelming and whelming. I was just like, okay, cool. Like, I'm sure that'll be fun for a little bit, and it's on Game Pass. Great. So yeah, can't go wrong.
Definitely. And it's also in Massachusetts. If you didn't know, apparently it's.
Yeah,
Redfall,
I forgot about that too.
Yeah. All right. So. Next week I guess this week. Oh, actually no, next week. 25th. We're getting an Xbox showcase. We're not getting anything like massive. It's not going to be like an E3 presentation, but we're getting like about 4 games shown. We're gonna get Elder Scrolls Online, which we're not gonna get into because you guys don't play MMOs, and I never played ESO. Forza Motorsport. So that is coming out this year as well. James, do you have anything? Is there anything are you interested about for Motorsport or not really?
I am more interested in Motorsport than I would have been if Gran Turismo 7 had not been a massive failure. So yeah, because I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I need a good new track racer, and this is it. If it's good, which I hope it is. There isn't really anything else in that vein on the horizon. So if this game isn't good, then I guess I'm going back to Gran Turismo Sport, which is kind of a depressing thought.
What about Forza Horizon?
That's different. That's not a circuit racer, you see.
It is true. So you prefer like just like F1 kind of thing where it's on a circuit compared to like
I think
giant
so
open world.
because it's like I love the Forza Horizon games and Need for Speed and all that. Like I love open world racing games, but a circuit racer for me is more fun because I can kind of learn the track and like learn all the corners, what speed you need to enter and exit each corner, and what angle you need to take, and all that kind of stuff. And you can kind of learn that through repetition and get really good at the tracks. And there's that kind of self-improvement aspect that you just don't get with open world racing games. That just appeals to me a bit more, I guess.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, so if this game is good, then it will probably occupy a lot of my time. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know you're a big F1 fan, so yeah, it makes sense that you'd be more into track style like racing compared to like
exactly
out in the forest and stuff.
Although the F1 games are not entirely my cup of tea, because they're a bit too
by the rules
simulatory.
Oh, they're
like
they're not as simulator. Like they're more like
they're more simulatory. I mean, you can kind of customize them to how simulatory you want them to be.
Yeah.
Because like you can go full on simulation mode, or you can play it more like an arcade game. But even playing it as like an arcade game, it still feels like you're driving an F1 car, which to me is just not as fun as driving normal racing cars or normal cars. So yeah, I guess that's why. But also, I think the games are just not as good quality as some of the best track racers out there.
Right. I will say though, I am excited to play Gran Turismo 7 in VR because that looks really great. Because
you know what, Gran Turismo Sport has a VR mode.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's quite limited. I think you can only do like a couple tracks or something. But it's in there.
It seems like Gran Turismo is like they're actually building like the entire like a mode for it. Like you can do pretty much the whole game in VR, which sounds incredible. Honestly, I played Gran Turismo for about maybe 10 hours. It just didn't get me. I'm not a huge racer, but I have played plenty of racing games and I played longer than that, and there was just something off about it. It just
yeah.
I mean,
there's just There is so many issues with it, from the monetization
Yeah.
to the fact that the AI in the game is pretty much non-existent. Which, and I rarely say this about games, but it's just not acceptable. Like, for a game that costs that much and is that premium, it's just like, you need better AI. The cars literally just drive in circles around the track, like, and you just they're just obstacles. They're like moving speed bumps. They
Yeah.
don't do anything.
Yeah, especially since like I got the game like after like they had those outage for like a week or whatever it was, and they gave me like a ton of money, like 1 million credits, like right off the bat when I first signed in, and I was able to buy a Lamborghini, like the first time, like the first day, and
Yeah.
it made the game a complete joke. So I tried
Right. Yeah.
I tried
Yeah.
not to drive it because it was like I wasn't just in first place. I was like 2 laps ahead of everybody else. Like
That's the
it
other
wasn't
thing.
even
Like,
fun anymore.
that's the other thing I didn't like about it was like the it's kind of like in this no man's land of the monetization is too predatory, so it's too difficult to get all the cars you want and stuff, but it's also too easy to get loads of cars because they kind of want it to be more like Forza Horizon, I suppose, because that's the cool thing now.
Yeah.
What they should have done is like just have it be more like Need for Speed Unbound, which is a great recent example where the economy is kind of slow and you have to work your way up to each vehicle. Like, that would have been so much more fun.
Yeah.
But instead, they're just kind of in this middle place where it's just not as satisfying in any way.
Yeah, Forza did the whole like gotta catch them all with the cars so much better than Gran Turismo.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I really
they
don't
went
have much
like
to
they
say
went
about
in that
Gran
direction.
Turismo because I remember when Gran Turismo came out on PS1, I think it was, or maybe was it PS1 that it first came out? I think
Yeah, the first game
PS1.
was on PS1.
not
Yeah,
not not
I
just
remember
that, it was the highest selling PS1 game.
Yeah,
ever.
so I had heard a lot of good things about it. I think it was either a demo back when they used to do those in magazines and stuff, or I just had literally gotten the game and I tried it, I think, for a good hour, and I was infuriated because I could not drive it very well. I used to play this game called NASCAR Heat, or I don't remember exactly what it was called, but you could shoot, just to give you a little dynamics here, you could shoot tornadoes out of your NASCAR cars. So that was the kind of arcadey shit I was used to. And when I tried to play Gran Turismo, I gave up after an hour because I was like, this is which it doesn't mean it was a bad game, by the way. It just means like,
Yeah.
I don't like that kind of ultra I mean, I went back to Burnout 3 Takeout or Takedown or whatever. Yum, Takedown, much tastier game. And I was infuriated with that, even though I love the Burnout series, because it just felt so difficult to like navigate oncoming traffic. And I remember crashing into things multiple times and just having my momentum completely halted and losing races left and right, and getting frustrated just turning off the PS2 or whatever. This is years and years ago. But I had gone back to it because like my uncle had the PS2 lying around or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just, I'm very hit or miss on racers. I don't play a lot of racers, so I don't have a ton to say here.
I've got to say, now that you mentioned the first Gran Turismo, if nostalgia was a drug, that first Gran Turismo, the menu screens would be the highest concentration version of that, because like that, I think that's a lot of the appeal for me of the newer Gran Turismo games, is like they still have all those same kind of sound effects and everything for the menus, and it all like there's a lot of nostalgia in that, and that's like part of the appeal.
The best part of Gran Turismo 7 was just the presentation. It was so classy. Like the visuals were just amazing. The sound was great. In the opening cutscene where it shows like the history of cars, is just so like only Japan can do like that kind of tribute. It's it's so classy. I was like I was blown away. I was getting a little emotional. I'm not even a big car person.
I mean, that's kind of like the series. That's kind of what they angle the series as, is like it's made by racing fans and car fans, for car fans.
But I am more with Dory though. I do prefer more like arcadey racing games than simulators.
And they keep trying to bring Burnout back. They keep trying to do these offshoots. Devs who used to be at Criterion keep making things. I know Burnout Paradise was the thing. I tried it. I didn't like it that much. I thought it was okay, but it's not the Burnout I want, which I know is old. I'm old and be in the sky yelling, and yelling at clouds.
I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah, since Burnout Paradise, I mean, they just haven't done anything with the franchise, which I think is a shame.
Yeah. Even Need for Speed hasn't like captured me in a long time, but I haven't played Unbound yet. It seems like people are digging that one a lot more.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
Yeah, but I grew up with like those arcade games where like Twisted Metal and the WWE like vehicle combat games and Mario Kart and things like that. So I just prefer like those kind of racing games. But I can enjoy a simulator. Back in the day, my dad used to play like, this NASCAR game on PC. It was like this got to be like 2004 or whatever, and you can make your own like cars, like the skins of the NASCARs, like the outside layer of it. Like some people had like Goku on their cars and stuff. It was so awesome.
See,
I love the customization.
I kind of have come around to understand the appeal of NASCAR as a sport, but I still can't understand the appeal of NASCAR as a video game, because driving around in circles for hours does not seem like a fun way to spend your.
Oh yeah, I tried NASCAR on the PC, and I hated it. And then I tried NASCAR. I don't even remember what the title was, Heat or whatever it was in the late '90s, where the tracks were a lot less. Well, they weren't NASCAR, to be honest. They were just like wide open tracks where you could. There were secret paths and stuff like that. And again, you could shoot tornadoes out of your car. So I mean, I don't know how you can go wrong with that formula. So that was the NASCAR I was playing. I tried NASCAR like 99 or something, and I hated it. I was like, this sucks. So I remember as a kid anyway, but
NASCAR would be cool in person, but NASCAR is a very obscure sport in America. It's very predominantly like the South that's into it. It's really not that popular. No.
It's really popular in the South. It's not really.
Yeah.
Even in the Northeast, I have very limited experience of hearing anybody around here who enjoys NASCAR.
Like football, like American football, people live and breathe. It's part of our culture. Like every town in America live and breathes football. But so even like no matter where you are, the football is everywhere. But NASCAR is predominantly like Tennessee, Alabama, Indiana.
It's weird. It is weird though, because like in F1, you always hear about how whenever they talk about America and stuff, it's always like, oh, NASCAR is this dominating force in America and stuff.
I mean, the audience that loves it really loves it, but dominating force is like football, because like Super Bowl's ratings just destroys everybody. Like, the only thing that's bigger than like Super Bowl's ratings is like the World Cup, because that's like a global thing. It's that dominant in the ratings. Like American football is just so huge.
Yeah.
And basketball, and I would say basketball's hockey, soccer is bigger than.
As somebody who vaguely pays attention to sports ratings because of professional wrestling, they are one of the leaders in consistently, like basketball and football and baseball are just like, hockey are just like, and I love hockey, but are just like the consistently like front runners. Like that's why like wrestling has stuck around as long as it is, because it's constantly in that top 5 conversation. But often when pro wrestling doesn't get good ratings from viewers and stuff like that, it's because there was a big football game or there was a big basketball game. I mean, it's just massive, and so that's how I know that they're so huge in TV ratings.
Pro wrestling's a global, like pro wrestling's gigantic, around the world. Like it's gigantic in the UK. Like there's a huge wrestling audience in the UK, and there's a huge wrestling audience in Japan. So
yeah,
I've got friends who are in that.
Yeah, like a lot of wrestlers in WWE and stuff, and every brand, AEW, are all usually British or so. It's
British
huge.
or Japanese,
British
or take from that Japanese strong style and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from Xbox that we're looking forward to in 2023?
That's all we really know. I mean, there's some of those indie games. Like I had the list and I lost it. But
what the hell happened to Devil in Me? I know this is super random, but like, does anyone know what happened to that game? Because Devil in Me got a preview or two, and then nothing.
Wasn't it Little Devil Inside?
Yeah, Little Devil.
Little Devil Inside.
It's a good question, because like the last I saw a preview of it, in Edge magazine, and it seemed like, okay, this is it. They're getting ready to release this soon. But that
Yeah,
was a long time ago.
it's been an issue with PlayStation and Xbox that like we haven't gotten a showcase in a long time, and people are assuming that's because Activision acquisition, like Microsoft's afraid to show anything because they don't want to because they want to play like the underdog role as much as they can, that they're like getting their ass kicked, and PlayStation has just kind of, they're doing the same thing. They're like, we're winning, we're not really doing well ourselves. I know they're trying to pretend like they're not the market leader and kicking their ass around the world. So it's like, and I know in America it's pretty it's closer. Like it's not like huge. Sony's not winning by a huge margin, but it's still they're still winning. And then PlayStation's just a dominant force in the Europe. So overall, so I know Microsoft has a huge audience in the UK though, but the UK is kind of it's kind of an outlier. I guess you can say. In comparison to the rest of Europe, or like I guess Germany or any like Switzerland or France, PlayStation is just like a juggernaut. You know what I mean? I could be wrong. You'd probably know more than me. Since
I
you
actually
live in
don't. I
Europe.
don't. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure about the kind of regional impact.
Yeah, because
Of that.
Sony has like no. They have a very limited appeal in Japan now. Like Nintendo's just annihilated everybody in Japan. Like it's not even close.
No, of course.
But so
That's a losing battle.
yeah, Sony's become a westernized country. Like they're Western in every way except they're still a Japanese company technically. But they're almost all the people that run the show now are all European or American. It seems like.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's off topic. But overall, it's been a while since we got any showcases, so we don't really know what's coming out for anyone really. Like we know Spider-Man's coming out for PlayStation, and we know like Redfall and Starfield, but other than that, we have no idea what's coming out. So, but am I complaining? No, because there's a lot of games coming out this year. Like you have people are acting like there's nothing coming out, and it's like we need to showcase every week, or otherwise gaming's gonna be terrible. It's like, are we not seeing what these lists? There's millions of games coming out this year. This year is absolutely stacked. So I don't.
And it might be this. It might be this kind of mentality of like, the hype cycle is more interesting than games themselves, which I certainly feel a lot of.
I think that's the case, especially if you're on Twitter a lot, or on forums and stuff. Is like people find gaming more exciting, just like the announcements and the showcases, than the actual games. I'm not in that camp because I play a lot of games, but I do love that too, though. I do love getting hyped about games too. So don't get me wrong, but there's just too much coming out. I mean, there's 2 games coming out like next week that I'm super excited for. Like Dead Space comes out, and then that was that Seasons.
Yeah.
The kid on the bike. I already pre-ordered it, so I don't need PlayStation to give me 1,000 games shown at a showcase. I'm happy where I'm at. So overall, we'll see where Microsoft's. I mean, Redfall and Starfield alone in the first half of the year is great for them. So I don't think they need to have a new game every month. They got a lot of those indie games coming out. Sure, too. They'll have them sprinkled in. I really hope people give more attention on indie games. Like people should play Pentiment. It's not going to be for everybody, but people should give it a chance and see if they clicks with them or not.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of Game Pass. Is if you don't like it, you can just uninstall it. You don't lose anything out of it. You pay in your subscription and you're all set.
I got 2 words for you: Vampire Survivors. Give that a shot. That game is amazing. I keep like sinking time into it, and I'm like, oh, I can't go back to Vampire. It's like when you've had like a really good relationship, but you're out of it on amicable terms, and you're like, well, I can't go back. I mean, surely not again.
The last time we spoke, you were saying you were done with it.
I know, and I went back because I had unlocked a couple of new stages, and I felt good about it because I beat one of the hardest challenge levels, but then I like found a secret level. I unlocked a couple like new forms of levels. I like found this really tough one where like 3 Grim Reapers are coming after you within a span of like 15 minutes. So it was nuts. So I was like, you know what? Let's give this another shot. I was able to beat it, which felt amazing. So I don't know. I'm definitely like,
she's addicted now.
I'm it's definitely like a Hades thing, right? Like where I say like, oh yeah, I'm done. I won't, and then like
she's gonna be like dreaming about it, and then humming the song, and then next podcast she's gonna have a cape on.
I know. With the little fangs and stuff. There's actually not even that many vampires, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vampire Survivors, go check it out. It's so good. I've sunk a lot of time in it. It's not even an accurate amount of time because in the background I've had it going and just minimized it and turned off the music and then like come back to it hours later. So like Xbox wants me to think that I have played it for over 24 hours, and I'm like, that's definitely not true. But I have played it for quite a long time, and each session's like 30 minutes. So that's quite a bit of Vampire Survivors. But yeah, go check that out. That's a great game.
While we're on the topic of subscriptions, I actually quite enjoyed PS Plus, like the change, like the extra.
Yeah.
Like, I would say Premium is the total ripoff right now because they're just not adding the PS1 catalog like they promised. It's just been very limited, and I don't like that. Like almost none of them have trophies except for like Siphon Filter, because Ben Studio owns that IP. So it's like. But Extra though, PS Plus Extra has been so great. I've had this. I've actually enjoyed like having games to try out, like Game Pass, where I play a game.
Yeah.
I don't like it, I can uninstall it. Like I just installed like that Jet game. I haven't played it yet, but now I can try it. You know what I mean? And if I don't like it, I can just uninstall it. So PS Plus Extra has actually been a good service. Like they have legitimately a lot of great games. They have every Assassin's Creed on there, and like there's a lot of great games if you totally missed the PS4 generation. And I just want them to add like more PS5 games in terms of like they don't have to do like God of War or Day One, but they should. I want them to keep doing like straight kind of games, where it's like it doesn't have to be a huge seller, but like a biggish title, because you know Stray was. I'm not saying Stray was like God of War, but Stray was like we were all everybody was looking forward to it. Like there was like one of PlayStation's like on those lists people do. You know, Twitter's obsessed with putting every game on a graphic so they can do list wars with everybody.
Yeah.
Stray was one of those games. So I do hope PlayStation does commit to doing that more. It's just that Plus, the Premium. It's just, I just wish there was a way we can play PS3 games without streaming. Like I don't get me wrong, I played streaming PS3 games streaming, and I've had mostly no issues, but it's still not the same. It just feels off, and the trials are just they don't give you enough time on the trials. Now, I know I get why, because if they give you like 15, 20 hours, you would probably beat a lot of the games. Because I have like played some games where I got through like 80% of the game in like 3 hours. Because they give you like 5 hours, but it just needs. It's just kind of it seems like a ripoff right now.
What's weird about like the streaming is that if you have a decent internet connection like I do, and I assume you do as well, Seb, is like it's that thing that you're saying of like it feels off, but I mean if there's like virtually no noticeable input lag, I think the thing that feels off, I may be wrong, but I think that thing is just knowing in the back of your mind that you're streaming this and that you're not playing it natively. You know?
I agree with that. Yeah, you can still see the difference. Like you can tell it's not native. Like it's very subtle, but you can the input.
Right. No, there's with like cutscenes and stuff. Like there's some banding.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, and yeah, like there's regular streaming drawbacks, but
so it creates that like that weird like feeling. It just doesn't feel right. I'm forgetting the term.
Like derealization. I don't know.
No. When something looks weird, and you can't, like you see like those CG like those, you see like
Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
That's like it gives me those kind of vibes where it's like it's just something's off. I can't enjoy it. Yeah. So. And I do know that they're using old PS3 servers still. Like maybe if they updated their servers and did and come up with a get on the level of Microsoft with those servers, maybe it won't be an issue.
If they put Resistance 1 and 2 on there, I will resubscribe.
They never did.
It's so bizarre that those games are not on there. It doesn't make any sense.
They put every Killzone on there, but they didn't put Resistance 1 and 2.
It's not right.
Yeah. And
everyone knows Resistance is better than Killzone.
Yeah, Killzone's I think Killzone's pretty mediocre. I don't think.
Yeah.
If anything, I miss SOCOM more than I miss Killzone.
So Seb, as someone who's, I mean, like I said, I've got a little money now. So you think the essential is good, or but the extra is not, or is it? Let's see, because there's extra, essential, and premium. So I didn't know which one.
Extra is the best one, which is the second one.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. My premium ends in March, and I will renew it because I do like having the premium benefit. Like for me, it's great because I'm a hardcore PlayStation fan. I mean,
Yeah.
I play every console, but PlayStation is my main console, and I do stream. I like the trials. I like having all the benefits of everything. So I it's great for me. But if I was recommending it to like the average person, right? Like Doria is obviously not as hardcore as I am because I play like hundreds of games, obviously. But for you, Doria, I would recommend extra.
Okay.
Or no, yeah, essential. No, what's the second one? Extra.
Extras.
Yeah, it goes
one.
essential
Yeah,
and then extra and then
extra.
premium.
Yeah.
That's just it, isn't it? That's the problem with it.
Yeah.
It's so confusing.
Because they both start with E. That's what throws me off as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even
I'd
use
imagine
someone
if
who
premium was like
uses it.
extra or something, or I don't fucking know, some other E word.
Premium's easy to remember because it's premium, so it's like okay,
Yeah.
it's the best one.
But like even when it came out, I mean I know what it is now because it's been battered into my memory so many times. But when it came out, it was like extra and premium. Neither of those things sound like words that are definitively better than the other. So it's like this constant confusion about which one is the higher tier.
Yeah,
Because there's no marker for it.
if they just called the first one like the essential one basic, like, but they don't want to do that because basic has a negative connotation because people are gonna think like.
Yeah.
But like that would just make it way more easier. Like that's just plus. That's just
They
regular-
could have
that's
just
regular plus.
called it PlayStation Plus
right.
and then had the other ones have
Yeah.
names. But
I don't know. Like if you're not gonna stream, right, Dory? Like you're not gonna play PS3.
No,
games,
I mean probably not. I'm even looking at like I'm even looking at extra right now, which is the great benefits included in the PlayStation Plus Essential plan, and then you have access to the games catalog featuring hundreds of games from genre-defining blockbusters, blah 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 blah.
because you get the
So
PS1
it's like
games, right?
Yeah, I guess I could.
Because PS1
but
it's part of extra, I believe.
15 a month, which is kind of steep. I mean, Game Pass is like what 10?
Game
So I don't
Pass
know.
is 15 if you have Ultimate.
Oh, is Game Pass 15? I thought Game Pass was 10.
Game Pass is 10 if you only have what you have is you only have the PC one.
That's right.
I have
Okay,
Ultimate, so
yeah.
I pay 15.
Right. I used to have Ultimate because I got a deal for it, but I don't have that anymore.
I might stop paying for Ultimate because I don't really ever play my PC Game Pass anymore. But there's always that one game that
Yeah.
comes out that I want to play on PC, so I just leave it. But normally I have
Yeah.
enough. But I use Bing now, so I always have enough points to like cash in to get Game Pass
That's right.
for free for a month. Although I haven't been using it as much, so now I have to start paying for it again. But it's not a big deal. $15 a month is not really much for me. But what? I would get the yearly one though. I would not. If I was getting the Plus service, I would not do monthly. I would do annual. I have never played month. You're paying more money on even though it hits you worse initially. You're paying way more money. Paying it monthly.
Gotcha. Yeah, $100 is steep for a year, but I'll definitely consider it. I'll at least
Yeah,
consider
premium's
Essential.
$120 for a year.
I might get Essential.
Which I didn't pay last year because I only had to pay $45 to upgrade my plan to premium. Yeah. Like I said, I really do like playing streaming. I love streaming on my PC and my phone and stuff. It's a really cool aspect. So that sounds appealing. It's fun to play PS Plus games like on the go, on the go in your house, not like on the go in a subway.
I can't wait to get my PSP. Yay!
Yeah, I do miss having a handheld Sony, but
I know.
they fucked up the Vita too much.
Yeah.
They're never doing
the
handhelds again.
Vita was never
Instead,
good.
The
I'll
handheld
die on
market.
that hill.
Nintendo owns the handheld market too much. They have a monopoly.
They do.
It's over.
Yes.
I mean, they own it so much that their consoles are handheld, but yeah.
Yeah. That was such a genius move on their part. Anyway, I would get if I was you, I'd get the essential because it has everything
Yeah.
you'd want. The trials.
I don't
think the trials will appeal to you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's everything on that topic. I think we nailed it. So
Nailed it.
I think we should move on to video game adaptations because we're gonna talk about the Last of Us show later on. So
Shocker. Breaking news: the lounge is going to talk about The Last of Us. Everybody, prepare yourselves. We never do that.
My God.
Now, video game adaptations have not been good overall. Like there's been most of them are terrible, downright terrible. But it's slowly starting to become on the better end now. Like more of the adaptations nowadays are becoming at least decent. Like they're not like atrocious ball movies anymore.
This is the thing everyone was making fun of, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin for. They kept saying in interviews, "We've broken the video game curse." This is how we're breaking the. And everyone's like, "Did you not watch Castlevania?"
Right, and Cyberpunk as well,
and Arcane.
and Detective and just Detective Pikachu. I thought was really great. Sonic was surprisingly good. Like video game adaptations have been better for like the past few years,
except for Uncharted.
Yeah. We don't talk.
Uncharted was trash, but
y'all didn't see it, but James's eyes just bulged out of. We're actually contacting local medical facilities.
Oh, okay.
And Mortal Kombat was terrible too. I did not like Mortal Kombat.
I didn't see Sonic 2.
Sonic 2? Yeah, I saw Sonic 2. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was pretty good.
Okay. I was told that Sonic 2 was better than the first one. I agree that it was better than the first one,
I like the first
but they both still fucking suck.
No, they were decent movies. Like they're stupid fun. Like they're not like
what, the Mortal Kombat?
No,
Sonic.
He says
Sonic. Yeah. Stupid fun. I thought it was just average. I thought it was just okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're great. Like, I just think they're fun movies. Like,
they're just
fun. But Sonic,
I don't know.
Sonic's fun in general. I think Sonic's just a fun. Like I beat Sonic Frontiers. I got the platinum this week. I wasn't like, oh my god, this is Last of Us amazing. I was like, this is fun, and that was it. And that was
of the two animated / live action family films that I watched with my Paramount Plus free trial, Sonic 2 was definitely better than Clifford the Big Red Dog. But it's not high bar, to be honest.
I can't believe you're doing Emily like this. Unbelievable. Clifford and Emily do not deserve this. Justice for Emily and Clifford.
I'm sorry.
There's just some things that don't translate well to live action, and
I still can't fucking believe they made a Clifford the Big Red Dog live act. I mean, I guess I can in retrospect when I say that.
I can't
you can in a world where they made 3 Alvin and Chipmunks movies.
Oh my god.
I can't believe that they hired Jack Whitehall to play the brother of somebody with an English accent and had him put on an American accent when he has an English accent. That's what doesn't make any sense.
Ridiculous. Look, I want to shout out the original Mortal Kombat. I watched it with some folks about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years now. I'm not sure. But really good film. I mean, not really good. Like, again, stupid fun. Like the original Mortal Kombat from the 90s, very dumb, but a lot of fun. I don't think the computer graphics have not aged well, but and of course the acting is for the most part atrocious. But I mean the memes. Think about the memes. It's a fun movie, and honestly, the choreography is not that bad. The fighting and stuff like that itself is pretty good. The plot's like whatever, who cares? But you're not there for the plot. You're there for the outrageous characters and silly, just memes and stuff. I think that's a good one.
Yeah.
Say what you want about the Mortal Kombat movie, the original one, but like that song is now synonymous with that franchise.
Absolutely, right? Yes. That song, bum 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 bum, so good.
Yeah. Like it's super fun. Like, yeah, the first movie is like stupid fun. Like everybody, like the characters are all like likable and they have like all the great one-liners. I used to watch that movie all the time. I used to run it.
Your soul is mine.
I used to run it from Blockbuster a lot, and like. Yeah, Mortal Kombat was gigantic around that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's... I mean, Mortal Kombat's still popular, but is it as gigantic as it was? I don't know.
No, definitely not. I mean, it was so popular that they were talking about it in Congress.
I mean, I was watching cartoons. I was watching...
about...
Yeah, right. I mean, we had like Mortal Kombat cartoons and stuff.
Oh my god, did they? Wow.
Yeah, we did, yeah. And
I don't remember that.
There were side games and stuff, too.
Right.
Yeah, because like... ripping someone's head like out of their spine is like for kids,
That's right. Didn't they do like a math game or something for Mortal Kombat? I don't remember.
They probably did.
They probably did. Count all the ridges on the spine that Sub-Zero just pulled out, kids. So
which
good.
is funny because I played Mortal Kombat when I was like, God, 4 or 5. So
Yeah.
you didn't think anything of it. It was just a game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think most people think like that. I don't. The whole video game violence, video games cause violence is so
Very
stupid.
silly.
Yeah.
But that's how popular Mortal Kombat was. I mean, it was so popular in the arcades that it was influencing Congress and the laws they were making about video games as an industry. So
Yeah, when it surprised
there's no way they're that popular anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we played freaking Mortal Kombat in arcades when we were like
Yeah.
6. Like, you know, like no one thought anything of it. Like it was
And
probably
you can still play Mortal Kombat. Well, in arcades, I think.
they-
I don't usually see them in arcades, actually.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had them at like Chuck E. Cheese somewhere.
That'd be very funny.
Anyway, yeah, the Mortal Kombat, the first one was really fun. The second one's awful. It's one of the worst movies ever made. But
Yeah.
I've had such a blast watching that movie with my friends. Like, even to this day, we quote that movie, and we laugh our asses off. 'Cause it's just so nostalgically bad. I every time I see like a YouTuber like make a video on that movie, I instantly click on it because I love when people shit on that movie. It's so funny. The thing is, and that's my problem with the newest one, is that it was just very forgettable for me. Because at least the what is it called, Armageddon or whatever, was like stupid fun where I remember it. Where the new one was just blah. It was just like,
Yeah.
it was a big budget movie that didn't feel like a big budget movie, which is kind of weird. Because it came out in the movie theaters and everything. But it felt cheap at the same time. But my problem was it was the storyline was just stupid. Like I always make this joke, but he literally had plot armor. Like that was his whole power. Like he put on like a suit of armor. Yeah, that was his power. It was plot armor. And I hate what they did with Goro and stuff. That was so stupid.
That's the thing. Is like it was. I liked. I mean, I'm not a Mortal Kombat fan. I don't know the lore, so I'm not like picking things out like, oh, that's not right, that's not right. But I enjoyed watching it. But I agree with. I mean, like you said, it's not memorable at all, really.
Yeah, and
It doesn't stick with you. It doesn't do anything to kind of resonate with you. So, I mean, yeah, but I don't think it's a bad movie.
I just didn't like anything about it really. There was some cool like scenes in it, but I even to this day right now I can't even think of anything about that movie except for when he has a gold plate armor on. That's all I remember about that movie. Like,
Yeah.
I think the beginning was cool, like with Scorpion's family and everything. Like that was cool, but they didn't. It was only like the first minute. Like if they just kept to like focused on like Sub-Zero and Scorpion, that could have been a really awesome storyline. That would have been different. But they decided to like, I think it had a problem where like was like some Marvel movies have where they're trying to build a whole world in one movie, and it's like you can't just like build an entire world, and only very few movies can do that, and they're like 3-hour movies. Like Harry Potter does that, and Lord of the Rings does that, and they do it well. But they take their time. But Mortal Kombat is, we want to see the action, and we don't need to like 45 minutes of like, oh, this is the outer world and these are Baraka, whatever. I forgot the name of it. Yeah. I don't need all that.
It just cared too much about the lore, which is a weird thing to say, but that's for the video games. Like when you have those video games, and honestly, I almost got like low key, like super obsessed with the Mortal Kombat lore of the crossover stuff in the last 2 games because it's just kind of fascinating. But I like saved myself, so that didn't happen. But like I was very close to like getting super into like Mortal Kombat lore because I was like, this is fucking fascinating. Like I know very little about it, but cool. It's so in detail, and you can do that when you're in video games, but you can't do it when you're in an hour-and-a-half action adventure.
I mean, if you're gonna do that, you should at least like focus to it. Because the problem with that movie, like keep it that way. Because the problem with that movie is like it wanted to be that movie, and then halfway through it, they're like, oh yeah, it's a Mortal Kombat movie. We have to have a tournament. And they kind of just tack it on the last, like, second half, like, this last, like, 25 minutes of the movie. Everybody just fights, I think. And, like, half the characters die like that before we even establish, like, the tournament and everything. Like I said, it was 2 movies in the same time, and it should have just picked one or the other. So,
yeah.
Anyway, but that's not even in the top 10 of worst video game adaptations. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Have you guys never seen House of the Dead, right?
No, I've never seen it.
Yeah, don't watch that. Like Uwe Boll's
What the-
movies, Alone in the Dark. Have you seen that with Christian Slater?
Nope.
Yeah, don't watch that either.
One that I need to watch, that I've wanted to watch for so long, but I can't find it anywhere, is the original Super Mario Bros.
You never saw that?
I never
'cause
saw it
can't,
either.
I can't find
What?
it anywhere. It's not streaming
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, it's hard
No,
to.
you-
I guess it'd be hard to find, but I watched that movie so many times, and it is god awful. But it,
Yeah.
but it no, I don't want to say it knows it's bad. I can't tell if it because that movie feels like it wasn't aware.
It had a huge rewrite. I don't know if you know the story about it, but like it was going to be like more towards like young adults and older adults and stuff like that, and then they just completely recut and reshot it so it was more for kids, and then the result speaks for itself.
Because
My
it's
favorite-
a dark movie. It feels like a cyberpunk. It has a cyberpunk dark.
It was
edge
supposed to be a
it.
lot darker and a lot edgier, which
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that would have worked, but I mean, like that's what they were going for.
It does still have that, even though it's goofy. Sorry, James.
Yeah.
My favorite detail about that movie is the guy who plays Luigi is
John Leguizamo.
yeah,
Mhm.
who was in Chef and more recently The Menu,
Mhm.
and I love that guy. He's such a great actor. So it was just so weird to see him in more recent movies and then see the trailer for the Mario Bros. Movie and be like, oh, holy shit, hang on, I
What is
recognize that guy.
It is funny that they picked a Puerto Rican guy to play Luigi, and then like Bob Hoskins, where's something like that, is a British guy playing an Italian. So the casting is just very strange. But I think that's kind of the charm to it. And like,
Oh yeah, I know it works.
And
I
it's-
think.
it's
I mean,
not-
I haven't seen it, but it
and
seems to work.
Bowser is not really Bowser. Bowser's like Koopa. He called him King Koopa, and it's just a guy with like a reptilian.
He's like in a suit with a.
Where, like it's just, and the Goombas are like big giant like Tim Burton looking things where like they're giant bodies, little heads.
Because back then, CGI wasn't a big thing, so they kind of had to work. They had to find a way to work these like creatures
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff into
Yeah.
like a practical
Sure, yeah,
way.
yeah,
And
and it was that I think it was like 91 or something, 90. That like every movie had like an edge back then, like all the adaptations. Because I think because Batman 1989 was so huge when it came out, like it was like the biggest blockbuster. So every company wanted to like have an adaptation that captured the same darkness of Batman. So like that's why you got like Ninja Turtles, like the very first. Have you ever seen the first Ninja Turtles movie?
maybe
It's fantastic, and I'm not.
I think it's
legitimately
great.
fantastic, and it's very
Yeah.
dark. Like it's not a kids movie. I mean, it is a kids movie, but it's mostly a young adult movie.
which is why the second one is so like
yeah.
neutered compared to it. I still think
Yeah,
the second
yeah.
one has nice moments, but it's kind of mediocre.
Second one is just
honestly.
memorable for me because I grew up with it, and then Go Ninja, but
Yeah.
But the first
And then
movie,
Super Shredder comes out of nowhere. Although it should be
Yeah.
noted, TMNT, the movie, well, not the newer one, but like the original one from the 90s is like a comic book adaptation technically. I know it's also a video game, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started as a comic book first and then went into a TV show and then a video game and
yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Well, people don't. A lot of people don't realize now because Ninja Turtles has been treated as a kids product for so long. The Ninja Turtles
Yeah.
was very adult. I mean, people get their
It
heads
was
cut
very
off.
adult.
Blood,
it was
people
black
get
and
their
white. It was very bloody.
swearing.
Shredder was
yeah.
killing people left and right.
Very
I mean,
edgy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the closest we ever got to that was the early to mid 2000s one on Fox
Yeah.
Kids. That was like one of my favorite kids. It was not afraid to go dark,
Yeah.
and like you really felt like the turtles could die to Shredder. I've got to go back and watch that at some point, but I remember.
I mean,
very good.
Ninja Turtles is basically just a parody of Daredevil. I mean, the hand, the foot. It's like they.
Oh sure, yeah.
That's what it really was. It was a parody of like all those '80s like dark characters in New York City. Anyway, going off topic a little bit, but one of the cool movies I really liked was Detective Pikachu because
Yeah, I was going to talk about that too.
Now the main story of it was blah, like it was very predictable, but
It's whatever.
just seeing all the Pokemon was like mind blowing because you rarely get adaptations that actually stay true to the actual source material. It didn't try to change all the Pokemon. Oh, I think this Pokemon would be cooler this way. It actually felt like, oh my god, this is the actual game universe.
Yeah.
Because I hate that. It doesn't like ruin movies for me, but it always bothers me when they just like, oh, this is stupid in the game, so we're gonna change the entire thing. And
Yeah. I saw it in theaters. I thought it was great. I thought it was memorable. I think there's a couple of Pokemon that look a little weird, but for the most part, I mean, especially you think about Mr. Mime, like looked awesome and terrifying at the same time. But I mean, it's just like it was such a great film, and I mean, Ryan Reynolds knocks it out of the park as he always does. I thought it was genuinely funny, not like quote unquote cringy. I thought it was like wholesome and like a nice story. I didn't like get much out of it, but it was fine, like Seb said. Yeah, it's definitely one of my more like favored. Like I would go back and I would rewatch that film. I think it's a gorgeous film, and the soundtrack is great, and the voice and the actors do great. It's just a good film. I mean, it's not amazing or anything. It's not winning any awards, but I especially for a video game adaptation, I remember especially when it was first announced and then debuted in theaters. People were like, "Oh shit! Like video game adaptations can actually be good." I think this is pre-pandemic, maybe 2019 or early 2020 or so. I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it was good. And it's a movie I look back on rather fondly, especially as far as video game adaptations.
That trailer was so hype.
I still haven't seen it because I should have watched it sooner, but before I got a chance to get around to it, somebody spoiled the twist. And after that, I just
you would have saw it coming anyway.
Yeah.
It's very predictable.
But yeah, I don't know. Okay, I mean, I still plan on checking it out.
Yeah, I mean,
eventually. I never saw an urgency once I knew what happened.
I think that movie would be stronger if you're a Pokemon fan, though. If you're not, like, you don't really care about Pokemon, I don't think the appeal is going to be as strong for you, because like just seeing all the Pokemon interact with the people around, like there's looking at the background is just probably the best part of the movie, because the story itself is just kind of generic.
And honestly, there's so much stuff in the background that's so much more interesting. Like there's Pokemon like fight clubs, and like there's bars, and there's like Pokemon crossing the street, and like there's so many questions you have about like what's going on in this world, how do things and the movie's like, I don't give a fuck, we're here to talk about this mystery, and that's about it. And like and I love that, because honestly it just leads to a lot of fan speculation about like, well, how does this work in this world, how does it, like, you can just make up your own shit.
I do have a question. Does the movie at all deal with the series' underlying tones of animal abuse?
I don't think it does it?
No, the only Pokemon movie that targets that is the Pokemon the first movie, because they fight to the death. Because Mewtwo makes the clones fight the regular Pokemon, and they fight to the death.
I always forget that there's like an anime. Pokemon's like a huge anime thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will. That's not really that. One of the things I like about this is a tangent, but one of the things I like better about Digimon, and it was like kind of highlighted in a tweet I saw recently, is like Pokemon are kind of treated like, I don't know, kind of like, you know, fighting, like they have to fight each other and stuff, while Digimon are like friends and stuff, and Pokemon are generally pets. I don't care. Like I'm not here to say, oh, Digimon's better or whatever, although I do think the anime is better. But obviously Pokemon beats it in the video games.
Well, here's the thing. The
Pokemon
the misconception is they fight to the death, and then when the Pokemon faints, they die. Think it's more like a competitive sport, like UFC. Like, are we trying to ban UFC because people get beat up? Because no one dies in the UFC. So
right.
It's a competitive sport.
Yeah, basically.
It's basically what it is.
And they have free universal healthcare, so I mean, like, they're set.
But Pokemon do all different types of things. They don't just like battle each other. It's just the games focus on the battling because it's an RPG.
Right.
But
and even Game Freak over the years have broadened that. Like they do contests now. Some people are like, I don't want to be a trainer. I'm just going to be a teacher or whatever. Like there's been some broadening of like a tiny bit of distancing, and of course you had Pokemon Black and White, where the main villain, quote unquote, was basically like PETA for Pokemon. So, I mean, Game Freak at least has kind of addressed it, but not really. Sort of, vaguely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But in terms of Digimon is like, the anime is a lot better. It's just that Digimon turned into like, they go from like little ball things to like freaking Gundams. And they're fighting, they're like digital monsters, hence Digimon.
Season 3 is still like one of my favorites. It's so freaking good, and literally tackles like super dark topics like depression and isolation, and alienation and stuff like that. It's such a good, and I figured out finally that they use this manga artist, who I guess wrote really dark. I can't remember his name, but wrote really dark comics or manga, and so that's why that season was so dark to begin with.
But
so different from season 1 and 2.
You should read the Pokemon Adventures manga. It's very dark.
Yeah.
Pokemon get stabbed to death. People like.
What the fuck?
No, I'm dead serious.
I mean, I believe you. I was just Yu-Gi-Oh was really messed up as a manga as well. Yu-Gi-Oh season 0 or something was really fucked up.
Yeah, if you can find it, read the Pokemon manga. You can just Google it and read the scan. People scan manga. It's very dark, like very, very.
Yeah,
very
I do want to talk about a couple. These are the last ones I want to talk about, but
okay.
Some really bad video game adaptations I've seen. And we were talking about this a little bit before the pre-show. But Silent Hill and Double Dragon, especially bad. I can't really say Silent Hill with full confidence. I got 30 minutes in, and then I went, "This is boring as shit." And then I saw the way Pyramid Head looked, and I was like, that fucking rules. And then I dipped. But with Double Dragon, it is consistently terrible. Like, that movie sucks. I don't even think it's like so bad it's good.
I remember that movie.
That's just like bad. It is just bad.
You like, because that was out, and then we had Street Fighter.
Street Fighter was fun. Street Fighter's okay. It's fun.
The guy that plays Bison. The guy that played Bison was dying from cancer at the time.
Yeah, he put his all into that role. He gave
everything into that role, and it shows.
Yeah,
like, that movie is amazing. Just for that, like, it's a horrible movie, but it's one of those so bad it's good movies because he puts all his heart and soul in that role.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
what a legend.
Yeah, he was amazing in the Addams Family as well. So.
Yeah.
As Gomez. So one thing about adaptations though, I feel like, is when you're very attached to the IP, it's really hard not to overanalyze everything. And I feel like I've had that problem with the Resident Evil movies and the Halo show, even though they both were consensus. The consensus is they're terrible movies, terrible adaptations anyway. But when you're like really into something, you just nitpick the shit out of it. I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like Resident Evil, especially like Welcome to Raccoon City. I feel like non-Resident Evil fans have been like, oh, I kind of like this movie. It was not that bad. And like me, I'm like, this movie was dog shit. Like you couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay me to watch that movie again. And
do you know what's interesting though, Seb, about that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you're right. Right. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious that the reason you have issues with that movie is because you're coming at it from the perspective of being a lifelong Resident Evil fan. But I have a very good friend who is also a big Resident Evil fan, and he actually thinks the movie. He has a similar view to me on the movie, that it's actually all right.
Yeah,
and it's not awful.
Well, don't get me wrong. I don't like that movie because I nitpick the shit out of it. I think there's generally big problems with it. Like, if I was just being objective, like, I think like the zombie makeup was like mediocre, like, horrendous. Like, it was just poorly done. I didn't like the characters. I didn't find any of the storylines interesting. I thought the whole Claire and the orphanage thing was stupid. Things like I thought they made Leon like to be a bitch, and he had no personality at all. And I didn't like a lot of the elements of the movie. Anyway,
Leon, it was interesting because I think Leon was the one character in that movie where, I mean, I liked his character, but I could never kind of picture him as Leon. You know what I mean? Like the rest of the characters, I mean, like whoever was playing Claire.
She was good. Like I didn't like the storyline with her, but I thought the actress that played Claire did a really good job, and I thought the guy that played Chris was really good too. I think they captured the characters very well. I think, I mean, the person who played Jill as well. Like, I could, by the end of the movie, I could certainly see her as Jill. But there was something about that portrayal of Leon where, I mean, I think it was just different enough from Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is the only version of that character that I've played. And he's mostly the same.
Like,
the original Leon and the Remake 2 Leon is pretty much the same. Like, he's like, he's a naive, like, he can be a little naive, but he's heroic, and he always wants to help. He's capable. You know? He's naive, but he always wants to help everybody. And I think he's pretty much the same in both games.
And they do that like kind of in the movies, but he doesn't feel as capable.
Yeah, he feels
so
like.
I think that's the one. Yeah. The one point there.
And it didn't even like. I think my problem with that movie is they shove like every game storyline in the same movie, whereas like we're doing an adaptation of Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and they even had Code Veronica scenes. I was like, what are we doing here? And it had Wesker in there, and it was just all over the place. And while we're on Resident Evil, the show was. Did you watch the show?
Which show?
The Netflix one.
With Lance Reddick.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Don't watch it.
No.
Lance Reddick was fantastic. Was he Albert Wesker? No. No, hell no. Like, he had nothing in common with Albert Wesker. I don't know. They should have just did a cool, like, original story with Lance Reddick as, like, his own, like a different, like, Umbrella employee, and just made him the focus of the show, because he was a superstar. Like, he took over that whole show. Every scene he was in, he nailed it, even though he wasn't Wesker. But the problem with that show is they try to make it a teen drama at the same time, and there's two timelines going on at the same time. There's a futuristic post-apocalypse where the whole world's gone to shit, and then there's a teen drama where they're in high school, the two girls, and they overlap each other every like 10 minutes, and no one's interesting except for Lance Reddick, and it's like
from the one or two trailers of it I watched, it seems like probably the most damning example of an adaptation where the creators don't have any respect for the source material.
None. At least Welcome Raccoon City, you can tell that the person who made the movie liked Resident Evil, and like he knew of things, even though I think the movie was, because I think the biggest problem with that movie was that it was disjointed more than anything else.
Yeah.
While the Netflix series feels like someone that says like, I'm better than this series. This series is mediocre and I can improve upon it, and that's what that's what it feels like.
From the trailers, it feels very much like we're gonna make this TV show. Okay, we've made the TV show. We need a name for it. Here's a franchise, Resident Evil. You know,
it was Resident Evil in name. That was like it was. Oh, we have zombies in there. Oh, okay. They all run. Oh, we have liquors for 5 minutes. Okay, that everybody knows liquors. Oh, we have a zombie dog. Let's put him in there in 5 minutes, because we all know, like it wasn't a Resident Evil show. It feels like they were telling their own show, and then they added in like familiar enemies that we know of to make it Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I just want to say for the record, I'm glad I ignored all these Resident Evil things, because I immediately knew they'd all be shit. Thank you.
It's like it's that balance, right? Of and it's like, you know, not to get into it too early, but like they talk about it with the Last of Us show, where it's like it's that balance of not just copying the game beat for beat, but also not just doing something totally different, still taking elements from it
and adding on to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you have to ride that line, but this Resident Evil show, from what I've seen, seems like they just went way in the direction of just doing their own thing.
The thing about Resident Evil is the lore is really great, and I don't think it's talked about enough, because we always focus on like the one-liners and the big action moments and the goofiness of it and everything. But there's so much pre-Resident Evil 1, like all the Umbrella stuff, like discovering the viruses and going to Africa and all the conspiracies and the building of the mansion, and Wesker and Birkin building, like the secret underground stuff. You can do a really awesome, compelling drama just with like Birkin and Wesker, like in their like 20s, like experimenting on people, kidnapping people. You know, there's so much cool things you can do with that. But I think companies just feel like they have to. Oh, we have to get the zombies in there. We have to do the zombie dogs. We have to do the liquors, because that's what's in right now. And it's like, just tell a comparing narrative, and people will like your show. And I think that's what companies don't understand.
I will say, on behalf of the movie, the Welcome to Raccoon City movie, I do like how they implemented the mansion, because I think it would be difficult to do a movie about Resident Evil 1 alone, but the way that they kind of meshed the 1 and 2 together in that story, I think they handled that quite nicely. Even if there was like issues with like the orphanage and just the story feeling disjointed, like you said,
I can understand.
I like the way they weaved that in.
Yeah, I understand that. I wasn't crazy about that, but that wasn't the worst part of the movie. I don't know how to explain it. Resident Evil 1, yeah, Resident Evil 1 just doesn't translate to a movie because what are you gonna do? Have people walk around a house the entire time?
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2, I think Raccoon City could be a great show, like a Walking Dead, like of like 10 episodes of just like surviving the city. No, not even like a season, just like a mini series. I think that would be probably the best way to tell like Raccoon City, and you don't even have to do like Leon and all that. Why don't you just do like random characters? Like this is what Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and 2 do. The games, very underrated, great Resident Evil games that no one ever talks about. And they're all random cast of characters. One's a new journalist, one's a scientist, one's a cop, and there's a whole narrative, Raccoon City narrative. Like there's one of I won't go on too long about this, but there's one like episode where you go to like a house in the forest, and this guy like his wife dies, and she's infected with the virus, and she like mutates with the plants, and this guy like wears a sack on his head, and he kidnaps people and feeds the bodies to his wife because he still thinks the wife's alive, like as like this zombie plant thing. And you can do cool like narratives with that, like just tell do like a series like that. Like every episode has its own like Resident Evil anthology series. That's what I would do. I would do like a Resident Evil anthology series. You tell like different compelling stories in the lore, because I think the lore is really great, in my opinion. But let's just do you want to add anything more to the adaptations? I think it's a nice transition to Last of Us.
Yeah, nothing other than the Uncharted movie is actually good. Thank you.
No.
I've watched it twice now.
No. No. Worst casting of all time. Mark Wahlberg as Sully will go down as probably one of the worst castings that I've ever
Let's see
seen.
how he does in the second movie with the mustache.
Now, if they just did a Sully movie, then like a young Sully, then maybe you can do that. But the problem is you have. The thing is, like, in my head, Uncharted 3, right? Sully's already like this established thief. Like he's in his like middle age, and then he stumbles on Drake. But Drake in this one's like in his 20s, and like Mark Wahlberg's like supposed to be like, I know Mark Wahlberg's like in his 50s, but he's supposed to be younger, and it just feels off.
Yeah, I have issues with how they handled his character. In particular, the two things: the way that he meets Nate, where he goes to a bar that he works at and recruits him, is not faithful to the games, and I feel like the way that happens could have been more faithful. But also, just in general in the movie, it seemed like, I mean, there was this whole vibe of he cares more about money than he does about Nate, which in the games, even in the flashbacks, like when they first meet, he cares about protecting this kid more than he cares about any monetary gain or anything like that.
Yeah, because they never get money in any of the games.
Yeah, like he's the old guy who always, he wants to pay off his retirement or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's his bit, that's his thing, but he never puts money ahead of Nate, and in the movie he does, and that does not feel right.
Yep.
But Mark Wahlberg was one of the most surprising things about that movie, because he did nail Sully's kind of mannerisms quite well.
I still hate the casting, but I do think he was a better casting than Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. I think why I hate that movie more than anything is because Tom Holland just doesn't feel like Nathan Drake in any form for me. Like,
I don't care how old Nathan Fillion is and how they were casting Drake. He should have been a period.
Nope.
Wow.
It's bad casting. It's bad. I'll die on this hill. It's bad casting.
Just a bad.
Thing is, Tom Holland is like me, where it's like no matter how old he gets, he's gonna look younger. Like because people still
get a baby face.
Because people think I look like I'm 20 and I'm gonna be 30 this year. So, because Tom Holland is not tall and he has a baby face, so they're gonna keep casting him as like this young, like a young person in every movie he's in. And Nathan Drake should be like more of like a heroic looking person, like built, that can climb on walls. Like, I'm not saying he has to be like, I guess maybe like Brendan Fraser when he was younger in The Mummy or something, like that kind of look. Nathan Drake should be something like that. But it just feels off the entire time. Like even though they capture the spirit of the games in terms of the action scenes very well, like they feel like straight out of Uncharted. I feel like this movie would have been a lot better had they just called it Uncharted but had different characters in it. And just made it like an action movie with the typical Tomb rating that they do in Uncharted.
I don't think that would have worked.
It wouldn't have worked, but I'm saying like my biggest problem with that movie is because they just never felt like Sully and Drake to me. And maybe I'm just too attached to Uncharted. It just never felt right to me.
I don't disagree, right? Because, the only reason I think I saw Mark Wahlberg, I saw kind of some of Sully in Mark Wahlberg, is because I was desperately looking for it. Like, he does a good job of capturing the essence of that character, but there's only so much you can do when you're a younger guy who doesn't look or sound anything like the character. So yeah, I agree with you about the casting there, but I'm of the opinion that that's actually a good thing, because if they got Nathan Fillion or whatever and he looks and sounds just like the character, it's the uncanny valley thing again, where it's too close and you're nitpicking it because it's not quite right. It's close, but it's not quite right.
I watched the YouTube short completely based around Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake. I thought he absolutely smashed it, but
he probably did a great job in that short. But I had the same issue in that short where it's too close. It's too close, and I'm nitpicking it because I'm an Uncharted fan. I've played all the games. All of them multiple times, and I know what Nate sounds like and looks like, and it's just not close enough.
He's even in the movie, which is funny.
I mean, I've played all the games too, and I enjoy all of them, well, except for 3. But so I'm with you. I'm a big fan of it. I do think Nathan Fillion rocks it, but I also think at this point, he's getting upper 40s, early 50s. It's tough to imagine him as Nathan Drake at this point. It's kind of like it's with Donald Glover and Miles Morales, right? That ship has sailed to like 10, 15 years
I think
ago.
what it is Nathan Drake starts off as like in his 30s. Like I guess we keep thinking Uncharted as like 3 and 4, because it always shows like teenage Drake, like teenage Nathan and everything. But like for Uncharted starts with them already established. Like everything's already established. Their relationship, what they do. So they should have got somebody in their 30s with charisma that has like the wisecracking of Nolan North, but also has the look of like a treasure hunter. That's how I would have casted it. Like this would have been a great movie to find an unknown. And I feel like Sony was chasing the dollar too much. Like, oh, we have Spider-Man Tom Holland, so we need him. We got Mark Wahlberg because he's a big name. Because I feel like they didn't trust the project would have been successful if they didn't have big names attached to it.
The thing is about. Okay, I hate, and I know you're going to disagree with me when I say the thing I'm going to say after this, but I hate the whole idea that blockbusters need star power. They need a big name attached. I hate that. We all hate that. But I think in this case it works for a couple of reasons, because one, Tom Holland gives the film a kind of premium feel that it just wouldn't have had if it was a small name actor you'd never heard of. It makes it feel bigger somehow. It makes it feel like a blockbuster summer action film that's going to do box office numbers. But also, just generally, having the characters look and sound nothing like the characters from the game lets you separate this from the game and watch it, not constantly comparing them, and just watch it and enjoy it for what it is, which is a blockbuster action film Indiana Jones ripoff.
It's a fair point. It's trick. I think overall, what it really comes down to is the writing good, and like maybe if the movie was just for me like a better, like just better written and directed, maybe I would have got over all that.
There's plot issues and writing issues.
Because the reason why like I don't have that issue with like Pedro and Bella and Last of Us show is that the writing's. It adapts it extremely well, and then it adds its own flavor to it. Adds new dialogue, new scenes, and they feel like different characters to me. Like mostly, like they feel like the same. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like just enough. Where I think Uncharted just went too much in the wrong direction. Like, it just doesn't feel like Nathan Drake to me. Where like I can tell that's Joel and Ellie, an adaptation version of them. Say like it's the same thing with like anything. Like I guess I rate Harry Potter in the book and Harry Potter in the movie, but they're still very similar. That it doesn't ruin it for me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think the Last of Us show captures that extremely well. Like, oh yeah, that's Joel. Even with Ellie so far, that's been my biggest question about the show is she gonna sell me on being Ellie? And so far, I think she's done a good job. Is like, oh yeah, that's Ellie. Even her look, her face still doesn't look like Ellie to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not gonna go away.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to me because I think she captured the spirit of Ellie really well. I was telling Dory though when we were watching it. I know I'm going ahead, but I'm like, I don't know how they're going.
We might as well start talking.
Yeah.
About it.
No, I use that as a transition. I was telling Dory though. My question, I know I'm going in the futures. My question was, how are they going to cast her? Like if they do season 2 and they do part 2, how are they going to do part 2 with her? Because she's already 19 years old and she has like she's kind of like Tom Holland where she's kind of short and looks young. So how are they going to age her up to make her look like because she's playing a 14-year-old and she's 19. So I know I'm going ahead of it, but I'm just I'm curious how they're going to handle that.
They're going to have to, because they're not going to wait a few years to do more seasons either.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to wait for
it's a huge hit.
HBO
already renewed the season and everything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure season 2 is going to come out. I can't imagine it not.
Which is another thing. I mean, again, not get ahead, but like that's another thing I would like to talk about is like it's a whole other ballgame adapting part 2. That's going to be like, I mean, even if they nail part 1, part 2 is up in the air because that's that's going to be way more difficult to adapt.
It's going to be that one's going to be more divisive. Because
but like even as a story, the way that story unfolds and the way that story works is like just the way it's structured. It doesn't translate as easily to a TV show. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I think I'm the only one, but I did have issues with the pacing of part 2. I didn't like the flashbacks, like in the middle. I thought that I didn't like when one character gets shot and then we jump to like the past. I didn't care for that. I know I'm in the minority on that, but yeah, but you're right. I'm curious how they can handle that in a show. But I don't think it's going to be divisive because of the typical internet rah-rah about Abby and Joel and all that. I mean more just because it's such a dark story. Like, it's brutal. Like, when she stabs a pregnant lady, the ending, like, everything's just, like, miserable. And it's an amazing story, but it's a miserable... And I don't think that's going to... It's like, part 1 is more of, like... a typical it's love, a survival horror story. We're surviving together. Part 2 is like I'm gonna murder everybody in my path to get to this lady.
I know
it's
a
very different dynamic.
I know that folks don't like talking about. I don't like talking about this either because I don't even agree with this analogy. But I mean, Druckmann himself sees part 2 as an analogous in some ways. I'm not saying I like or condone this analogy, but the Israel-Palestine conflict in such a way. And I mean to compare any piece of media to that kind of conflict that has gone on for so long, claimed so many lives, is so in of itself grisly and dark on a lot of levels. I mean, that just speaks to like the kind of trauma that's built up into that show that you would even try to make that analogy. I think part 2 is going to be a whole nother beast. I want to see how they do with part 1 first, though. I want to see that first. If they nail it, then I at least have some confidence they can do part 2. And I mean, I know James will be, I think James has a somewhat more negative view, like relative. It's all relative. I think we all like the show. Yeah. But I think for James, it's, it reminds me of, and Seb said this before, but when you were like, when we were talking about God of War during the Game of the Year, and you were like, all right, but it has this problem, and it's this problem, and this problem, but it's a 9.5 out of 10. But it has, I feel like that's going to be similar here with The Last of Us, which isn't, I mean, I'm not saying
if a show does that, then it's great, because if you have to nitpick the show, that's always my opinion. If I have to nitpick like minor things, the sound was a little off here, dialogue wasn't good, there's too much swearing, there's drama here. Then the show's great. It's 5
I definitely had a moment or two. I definitely had a moment or two in the show where I had to get adjusted to like these not new characters, but actors as these characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing, usually what hurts me in a show, like where my opinion starts souring, is the pacing not great? Am I getting bored? Is the acting and dialogue throwing me off? Like things like that. Like those are like major issues, and like from start to finish, the pacing was just spot on. Like I was not bored a single time. Everything was just fun to watch. Because in the beginning, I was a little like, okay, how long are we gonna spend on like pre-apocalypse and setting everybody, like, are we gonna give all these neighbors like all this backstory and all that? But they went right to it, and they developed the characters just enough to move the story forward where it didn't hurt the pacing at all, because I was worried, because this is what the problem with The Walking Dead is, that the Walking Dead will spend the entire episode for a whole hour just developing every single character in the beginning, like all the neighbors. We got to give them 20 minutes of dialogue and sitting at the table. This show went like, just showed in 10 minutes went from like, Sarah like going in their house, meeting the old lady. Then you got a really cool background shot of like the lady look like starting to like mutate.
Yeah, that was so good.
It reminded me of like the when the character in the background would like stare at the camera. Like I love scenery, like subtlety is beautiful in horror. Like horror is amazing when it's subtle. I love that shit. Like that's what I love. And
the scene in the school where where Sarah is looking at the classmate who's twitching and has that hospital bracelet. I thought that was so well done. I didn't even pick up what the hell was going on.
Yes.
Yeah, like it was subtle. It was good, subtle storytelling. I didn't even get like that. Oh, the person is like fighting the infection or whatever, or is like currently struggling with the fungus infection. I didn't even get that. I thought it was just like they were just looking at somebody randomly. I didn't even get the point of it. And then someone explained it, and I was like, oh, of course, that makes so much sense. The bracelet was from the hospital. They had been infected. They were like starting to turn, but they hadn't quite turned yet. Yeah.
Yeah. But then it transitions to it goes from like the action just picks up like all of a sudden, like, oh, we're in the beginning of the game, we're in the truck, and it's almost shot for shot. The only difference was like there's an airplane that crashes compared to like getting hit with the car. They even do a fake out with the truck, like the car like stops.
That was one of my biggest, like that was the thing that I liked the most, I think, of the episode, was like those are the kind of changes that they should be making.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff that doesn't impact those are the kind of changes I want them to make the most, because those are things that don't impact the story, but they keep us on our toes as people who know the story. And also that was fucking dramatic as hell.
Yeah,
with the plane and all that. Right, so just to lay some groundwork for this, for my feelings on the show. Craig Mazin is running the show for this, obviously, of Chernobyl fame, which is a great show. I think everyone agrees. My feelings on Chernobyl, real quick, are I loved the show. Right, it was really.
It was a miniseries. Just to be clear.
Right, yeah, really entertaining, but I think for me, it didn't stick with me the same as it seems to have other people. Like, I mean, people talk about it like it's the greatest show of all time. It's like high. It's high on like the greatest shows of all time.
I thought it was fantastic, but I wouldn't consider it like one of the best shows ever. It was.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I see why people think that, but it never resonated with me in that way. It never stuck with me, even though I enjoyed it greatly. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting the same kind of vibes from this show, from the first episode, where I love it, but I don't love it as much as other people are loving it. And I don't know if that's just because it's Craig Mazin again, and it's the same kind of storytelling. It's probably partly that, but it is also like you were saying, these nitpicks that I've got, where it's like, okay, we get to. I mean, I was loving the show for the whole first bit, apart from the cold open. I didn't like the cold open. I thought it was unnecessary, kind of out of place, and some of the kind of
with the neighbors and stuff.
No, he means with the interview.
Oh yeah, the interview. I wasn't even thinking of that part. I totally forgot about that part. Yeah, that part was a little off for me as well. That was one of my problems with it. I was like,
yeah,
I get what they were doing. They're setting up like the fungus and everything, but it just didn't. It just fell out of place.
And
the
this
show.
is gonna that, but also like this is gonna on such a micro kind of level, and this is gonna sound like the most nitpicky of nitpicks.
No worries.
But it's like there's the bit where he's talking about you've got the two scientists, right? And one scientist is talking about all the fungus and everything, and the other scientist disagrees with him. And I feel like in real life on a talk show, if you had these two scientists disagreeing, the second one comes in and he disagrees, but he says it to the host, he says it to the audience. But in the show, you've got these two scientists disagreeing. The scientist, he turns to the other scientist and he starts having it out with him. And to me, I know it sounds like such a small nitpick, but it's like those kind of dialogue and like directing choices that make it like those kind of little things pull me out of it. And there's those kind of little dialogue moments and stuff that make it feel like not a real interview, which kind of pull me out of it.
I feel like that scene would have been stronger if it went for more serious conversation with a scientist in a talk show, because the host felt more like a Jimmy Kimmel type, where he's kind of like he's taking it like very sarcastically, like, oh yeah, whatever, and it doesn't match the tone of the overall show.
I mean, I like the cold open
for me, but
I like the cold open. I thought it was good that they established stuff for people who aren't aware. It's tough because you want to establish that this has just a tiny little drop of realism. That's what makes the horror scary, right? Is that the horror element of it scary? Is that some part of this is slightly plausible? I mean, when they said, well, what if the world starts getting warmer and these fungal have to adapt to that? And then he said, oh, well, then we're fucked. I was like, well, that's cool. Like, that global warming is a current serious issue. That little bit of realism is all I need for this horror to succeed. Now, does it feel out of place? Yeah, for sure. We're never going to hear it from those hosts again. It's back in the 60s anyway. It's weird that the guy from The Mummy is randomly in the show and then never in it again. So, like, I agree. It feels out of place. Yeah. I think it was a necessary evil. That's what I would call that intro.
I think we agree that, like, something like that was good to start with. Is just maybe a just different tone of it would be.
Here's the thing, though, and I don't think anyone will have mentioned this, right? But there is one other issue with that cold open, because it kind of has a knock-on effect, right? So you have the cold open, the interview in the 60s, and then we hit the title sequence, right? It's like a Game of Thrones-esque kind of drone shot through these 3D models.
Yeah, definitely reminded me of Game of Thrones.
And stuff. Very kind of aping Game of Thrones, kind of HBO high-quality thing. Which I think they could have done something more unique on that, by the way.
I absolutely love it, but it is very similar to a lot of their shows.
Yeah. But the thing is, right, we do the interview, we have that title sequence, and then we're into Joel and Sarah and Tommy and all that. What I think they should have done, right? Scrap the interview, have the cold open, have it start with Joel, Sarah, and Tommy. Wait until halfway through the episode to drop the title sequence, because halfway through the episode is when Sarah dies. Okay, and in the game, when Sarah dies, you have that title sequence, and that gives you like a minute or two to process that situation and what's just happened. In the show, you don't have that, because we've already had the title sequence at the start of the show, and Sarah dies, and it cuts straight to 20 years later, and there's no time to kind of process it. And like, that scene was great, but there's no time. You need that time. And I mean, you can do a title sequence 20 minutes into a TV program. It's been done before. Plenty of shows have done it. I don't think there's an issue with it. But yeah, I think that's what it should have done, because I think you need that time to breathe after that moment.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, for sure, because it does go like from her death right to like Joel 20 years later, and like, oh, we're in the next chapter now. Yeah, I feel like they should have took her. They probably could have slowed that down and just like, okay, let us breathe. Yeah, the game did a better job in that regard, in my opinion. There's parts of the show that did better than the game. We're not there yet, but I do agree the game does that part better, for sure. And like I said, I liked the whole neighbor part. I didn't hate it or anything, but like, I didn't really need it either. Like, you could have easily just like.
That's the change, right?
It's adaptation, though. So. You gotta kill
That's
an
the
hour.
change of like one of those minor changes again, where in the game it's the husband who comes running at Joel and he shoots him, but in the show it's the gran who comes running at Joel and he fucking smacks her with a pipe wrench or whatever.
Takes her the fuck out. I love it. Tommy's like, Joel, what are we doing, Joel? And he just fucking whams her with a goddamn wrench. It was amazing.
Although in the game, it's really not. It's very minor. It's part of the story. Like it gives you just enough where like, oh, you notice the neighbor running at you. Like I didn't really need like 10 minutes of the neighbors and all that. Like, and I don't like when horror movies always go for like the creepy grandma thing instead. Oh, because that's interesting. Oh, it's like the grandma, like the zombie thing. Like, I was like, oh, a typical horror movie.
It definitely.
These are minor. These are minor.
Oh yeah,
nitpicks,
I got RE7 vibes from that. I kind of really love that. Like, she's just like.
Well, yeah, they did the Resident Evil shot.
Yeah, they did the Resident Evil 7 thing where evil grandma's in the background. Sorry, spoilers, but evil grandma's in the background.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
No, yeah, it's just been done so much. I think it's one of the things though. Is, you know, the show is amazing.
I'd rather have old, ancient, cranky evil than another goddamn evil-looking kid who's got like long black hair. You know, I'm tired of. I don't mind evil grandma. Evil little children is where I'm getting annoyed.
Now this game. I think the show is absolutely fantastic. I think it's a 5 out of 5 episode, but it's just how it is nowadays. Where we've seen everything, so like we've seen zombie shows done so much. Like this feels like a better version of The Walking Dead. Like this was like how season 1 of The Walking Dead was, because season 1 of The Walking Dead was really good, and then the writer left the show after season 1, and you saw the drop in quality after the first season, and so the show feels very familiar because it feels like a Walking Dead show. Like it has the same tone, it has the same like color scheme, very greenish gray. You know what I'm talking about? Like. Like the like I was wondering when they were in transition, like at the end, I was wondering when they were in transition to the blueness of the rain, like in The Last of Us is very blue on a lot of parts, and this show is very like green and blue. I mean, excuse me, green and brown. So I know these are again minor things, but like it reminds me of The Walking Dead because The Walking Dead has the same exact color tone to it, like the camera work and everything. So it just feels familiar. I mean, it feels familiar, is what I'm saying. It feels very familiar.
Honestly, I love getting into that kind of nitty-gritty stuff, especially when we're dealing with an adaptation like this, where like we're all so familiar with the game, with the source material, but we really can go into these little details.
Yeah, because Dory and I the whole time. I mean, we for the most part we were quiet. Like we here and there we were like, oh. We know that. Like
those are the backpacks.
They did that. They did
the thing. We did the thing.
We knew all the dialogue. Oh my god, they said the lines. Like we said that like 25 times probably.
Sarah said it's for drugs, hardcore drugs. I was like, she said the thing.
Okay. This is again, because I'd listen, and I have to stress, I like the show, but. This is the other problem I have.
We have to emphasize this is God of War Ragnarok for James again.
Exactly.
Okay, James, go ahead.
So, I have played the game like a dozen times. So I know every piece of dialogue inside and out. I know how it's delivered. It's ingrained in my memory, right? The way Joel delivers that line, where'd you get the money for this? Kind of thing. It's kind of like mocking, like how'd a kid get enough money for a watch? Right, it's like he's mocking her. It's like that kind of father-daughter familiarity kind of thing. And Pedro Pascal delivers it totally differently in the show. You know, he poses it just as a question: where'd you get the money for this? And it's like, it's not a big change. It doesn't matter, but it bothers me because it's the same line and it just doesn't feel right. You know, and again, it's the kind of thing that is a nitpick, but it takes me out of it.
I think
and it's those little things.
I think that's like one of the biggest contrasts between me and you is I'm more of a big picture person and you're more of like the small detail person. Even though I can see the small details.
I had a really funny moment, James, that made me think of you in my phenomenology class, where the professor was like, I hate talking to my film friends who are in the film department because I'll be talking to them and I'll be like, oh, I love this movie, makes me feel like this, and like the scene, like it was so good. And he's like, and then my friends from the film department will see like, yeah, but it was shot like this and composed like this, and like you can really see the director's intent. And he's like, I don't care about that. Like, just shut up. And I was laughing because I was thinking about you, James.
Yeah. Like I'm detail oriented too, but I'm not like I think James is just more Like he just
Yes,
his brain thinks
James
more
is
like
definitely
that.
more deep, which I appreciate.
I'm more
It's
big
good
brain,
to have that
'cause-
balance here.
'cause me- yeah, exactly.
Me and Seb are like more big picture, and
Me-
James is like
me-
detailed, which is good.
Me, it's more about like the pacing and the storyline and the visuals and things like that. But I'm not like little minor dialogue. Oh, the tone's a little off. That doesn't bother me as much. But I still know what he means. Like
Yeah.
I know the lines
I get it.
extremely well. I've beaten that game maybe 6 or 7 times, and like I think all 4 of us, Mitch is here in spirit. Is our giant Last of Us. Like it's like one of our marquee franchises. Like we're all massive fans.
Yeah.
Of it. So
It's the glue that holds this podcast together.
yes,
It
No,
really
it
is.
the very first thing we did together was a spoiler cast for Last of Us Part 2. The very
Yeah.
first thing we ever did together. So
I have another issue actually.
yeah, let's get the negative
Surprise-
stuff
shock
out of the way
horror.
because I don't want this to feel like we're very negative on the show because we started off like negative
Yeah.
for a while now.
Well, this is kind of a this is like halfway a joke, right? But
yeah.
on the other hand, it's not. So I don't know what decade Depeche Mode is from.
The 80s.
Right, okay. But watching the show, I didn't know that. So I don't... when they play Depeche Mode on the radio, and it's like, okay, 80s means this, 70s means this.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know what that means.
Hmm.
So, it kind of... I feel like that one part of the show, like, to get that plot and what that actually means, you have to have some knowledge of... last century's pop records.
Yeah.
You know?
I like that moment where like Ellie figures out the code very quickly because it illustrates how capable Ellie is because Ellie is very smart and talented person and she picks up on the code like that and it was a subtle moment that shows her character very well.
Yeah.
So but I understand what you're saying like if you don't know the song.
No, I like
you're not
that
gonna
bit
know.
as well. Like the stuff that they added, mostly I like.
I would say there's one negative I have, like one of the biggest negatives I have, again, not very big, but biggest, is some of the Fireflies I didn't care about. Like, they add this extra lady that adds nothing to the story for me. Like, the one lady loses her ear.
Yeah.
Like, she adds nothing to the story at all. Like, you could have just cut out the whole meeting at the table scene and then the whole hallway scene where Joel meets Ellie. Like,
I do wonder.
She contributes nothing to that scene at all for me. Like you could have just had Marlene there.
I do wonder if she'll come into play later.
She probably
because-
will. She probably will. But
Yeah, I mean she's still alive, and I wonder if this is one thing I was like thinking about when I rewatched the episode. It's like I wonder if they're gonna show us any of Marlene's journey to the end point.
I mean, how many episodes are there?
9 episodes.
I mean,
I thought
And they did say like there are a few. I mean, reviews and stuff have said there are a few canned episodes, like the episode 3, which is going to be about Bill and Frank, pretty much exclusively,
yeah.
where we kind of step away from Joel and Ellie and we just see these other characters.
What-
So I mean, I assume there'll be maybe one about David, maybe one. There'll be
Which-
probably be one about Sam and.
Which is great, but at the same time, it worries me just a little bit because this is where the Walking Dead starts falling apart. Is when they do this. Is like Walking Dead will have a giant cast, and they'll dedicate an entire episode to one character, and it ruins the entire like pacing of the overall story, because like if the character's not interesting or it's just something exciting will happen in episode 2. And then it's like 3 episodes of just side characters for 3 episodes, and it ruins the entire pacing because it's like, can we get
'cause you're
back
like,
to the main
I want
story?
to know what happens.
Yeah, so I don't think the show's gonna have this problem because HBO's. I'm a giant HBO fan. I've watched all their shows, even the worst ones like Westworld, were still like decent shows, even though the writing was like shitty by like season 2 and 3. Is that I don't think the show's gonna have that problem. I think it's gonna do a good job with Bill and everything, but that is one of my worries. Is that I've seen with The Walking Dead where it's like, I don't care about this. Can we like get back to Joel and Ellie? So I really hope they can make other characters interesting. So far, I like Marlene in this version. It's the same person, same actress. which is very rare. You never really get the same voice actor actually playing the
I really, like, at first when I heard her, I was like, she even sounds like Marlene from the game. And I was like, wait, the fuck?
Yeah. Like, I was like, wow, that's, like, you can't get any better casting than that. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's the same actress.
Yeah, it's the same goddamn woman.
Yeah.
Same person.
I think in terms of those canned episodes, like,
We'll see, though.
I mean, the reviewers, the critics have been given access to the entire season, which I think, I mean, I don't know anything about TV reviews and how that works, but I think that's irregular. I think usually they just get given like half the season or a handful of episodes, but they've been given the whole season, and it seems like the general consensus is that episode 3, that focuses on Bill and Frank, is the standout, the absolute standout, and the best episode of the season.
I haven't read any of the reviews. I've kind of been staying away from like conversations about, but yeah, like that's exciting then, because so I have no if it's good, I have no issue. That's what I'm saying. Like there is a whole story that was very interesting. Like we could spoil it because this game's like 10 years. Was it 11 years old, 12 years old? Bill. The whole story to Bill and his lover, right? He commits suicide, and there's like a whole. You paste the story together in the notes. Like it has that subtle storytelling like Resident Evil does. And
that's one of those changes. Is like the fact that we find out in the first episode that Joel and Tess, they know Bill and Frank, but in the game, Joel only knows Bill. He doesn't know Frank. And we don't. And Bill's not mentioned until like long after he meets Ellie and all that. Like, there's no reference to him. Exactly. So like I think at the very least the repercussions of that will be that we don't have that scene where Joel and Bill are talking about Frank and he's like, who the hell's Frank? And all that stuff. But like I think there could be more changes to come from that. It's probably gonna be stronger in the game because that's one of the advantages of a show is you can do more with that because it's longer, an hour. You're not like playing a game. So that's one of the strengths of a TV show is you can develop those characters a lot more in that regard. Go ahead, Dory.
The thing I think is weird is that Bill's going to be played by Nick Offerman. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. And I just can't get around that. That just seems weird to me because I only associate, and I didn't even really watch this, but I only really associate him with Parks and Rec. So I just don't know how I feel about that. He's a recognizable guy.
I think he'll sell it. What I'm more interested about that episode is that Frank's being played by Murray Bartlett, who is absolutely the best thing about HBO's other show, The White Lotus.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Pedro is a recognizable face. I've seen him in a million things now, and I still believe he's Joel.
You gotta check out the short videos where Pedro Pascal reassures us that he's our daddy. So I just think that's amazing, and I wish Pedro Pascal all the best in the world.
I mean, Pedro's just like he's in The Mandalorian, he's in Game of Thrones, he's like tons of movies now. He's like marquee.
Bella Ramsey was also in Game of Thrones, which I had dipped out by then, but yes, she was also in it.
She was one of the best parts of Game of Thrones, even though they did her dirty. But there was a reason why I was somewhat optimistic for her as Ellie, because I've seen her in his Dark Materials, I've seen her in Game of Thrones, and she plays that loudmouth, no nonsense little girl that fits Ellie more. I've seen her swear plenty of times and boss people around. So I understand why they casted her. It seems like HBO always likes to cast her in the same role. Like, have you guys ever seen his? Do you guys know his Dark Materials?
I know about it. I've never seen it.
No.
It's a HBO.
Well, I know. I've seen the first season of it, not the second one or the third.
Yeah, I really recommend it if you like fantasy. It's a kid. It's more of a family show. Like there's dark aspects in it, but James McAvoy is the main character and stuff, one of the main characters. But it's more like a family. It's not like rated R or anything, but anyway, she's in that, and she's like Ellie in that too. So I get what they're going for. I just need this whole show is gonna come down to her chemistry with Pedro, like the entire if there's something off about the chemistry, the entire show collapses on.
And
itself.
I'm not worried about Pedro because Pedro's
but I don't
already
think
got
that's gonna be
that.
an issue.
He's already got that nailed down in Mandalorian. So it's
Yeah.
really just comes down to Bella Ramsey.
Yeah, I mean, if
Well,
she,
that's the thing is, like, I know, Seb, you didn't watch any interviews or reviews or anything like that.
Yeah.
I watched all the interviews and read a ton of reviews. So the thing that Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal in particular were trying to sell very much in the interviews was this the fact that they've bonded very well while making the show, like a house on fire. But, you know, it's... it's probably true, right? But they could also be playing that up for marketing because that's what people need to hear. But we'll find out. Like I said, the thing that this actually brings me around to kind of full circle, which is interesting, is like, okay, I mean, personally, I'm still not sold as Bella Ramsey as Ellie. But even if you are, the interesting thing is, again, when it gets to season 2 and they start doing part 2, even if you're convinced that she can play Ellie from part 1, are you really convinced yet that she can play Ellie from part 2? Because that is a far different character. And that's not only that, it's like, there are scenes in that game that would be incredibly difficult for any actor to get get across in the same way that Ashley Johnson managed to.
Yeah.
The pure hatred.
Yeah.
To stab, like, to murder a pregnant lady.
Not even
would
the
have to be captured on.
I think it's important.
The hatred is
note
one
that
thing,
Ellie
but
did
also
not. I don't know whether I know this is going to the game more than the show, but I'm not sure if Ellie knew at the time that
No,
was
she
pregnant.
didn't. No, but she didn't know. I haven't played in 2 years, but 3 years.
yeah,
Okay.
she didn't know.
She didn't know, but that was the turning point where she's like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
maybe I've gone too far."
My
She starts
my
questioning
main
herself.
my main concern for that is not so much the anger, but the desperation of specifically the scene where Joel dies.
Oh, you
And
mean
she's pinned down,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, just, I mean, that was some of the best acting I've ever seen in the game from Ashley Johnson.
Not only that, but
And-
acting that's traumatic. Like, that can be hard to act, like, just because in live action, because, like, even for actors that can be too much. Like, like, what's that movie? Doctor Sleep. Did you guys ever seen Doctor Sleep?
Yes, it's a terrific movie.
When the little
Ewan
boy gets
McGregor
murdered by the vampires. What's his
Yes.
name?
I don't remember his name, but he's a little baseball player.
That kid's, he's an amazing actor. Anyway,
Yeah.
that scene's very traumatic for a lot of people. Like, seeing a child screaming in pain and getting murdered. And
Yeah,
so
they went hard with that scene. They did not relent.
Yeah, so capturing that's what part 2's tone is like. So you have to capture that, like, in the show, and that's where I think it's
I'm
gonna
not
be more
convinced you
divisive,
can.
because a lot of people are gonna have that issue where it's like, this is too much for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where I mean divisive, not because the whole internet, crybabies about everything. It's because the tone is so dramatically different from the first game. So a lot of people are gonna be like, "Hey, wait a minute! I love the first season, but what is this?" So we'll see. We'll see how people react.
I do think that, to be fair, the first game sets up Ellie becoming a more confident, badass character throughout it, through the whole arc of her learning to use a gun and killing people with Joel and stuff, which is very fucked up, obviously. And her backstory too with Riley might help. But yeah, I agree. This is a big jump to make, but I don't know. I'm also not worried about it. Like, I want to enjoy season 1.
Sure,
I don't really want to worry about. I'll worry about season 2 when we get to the end of the season, and then I'll say, okay, do I think Bella Ramsey can do it or not? It is a challenging role.
I haven't even really worried about it. It's just only in conversation when I'm having, like, a deep dive with you guys that I'm thinking about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like when I'm watching the show, I'm not thinking like, oh my god, what's gonna happen in part 2?
Yeah.
But let's get like some positives. There's a lot of positives.
Yeah, there's a lot of positives.
It's a beautiful looking show. Like, just the settings, like the sets are fantastic. Like,
the set pieces are incredible. I had a moment, and I never have moments like this, where I actually went kind of like detail mode, where I was like, wow, this set looks incredible. Like, this looks really good, really close to the game. There was definitely moments where, like, Joel's in the living room and the killing time section. and I was like looking at little details, and I was like, man, this is really good.
They even did the transitions like the game. It was like the
Yeah.
sudden transition from day to
Yeah.
nighttime. I'm like,
Yeah,
I told
really
Dory,
wanted-
I told Dory, they're gonna do that. They're gonna do the change. They're gonna do the day to night change like that, and they did it. I was like, yeah. So
The no, you're right. The details are great. My only problem with that is that there's no photo mode.
I thought you were being serious for a second, and I muttered, "God damn it, James!" Yeah, no, I think the actors are incredible. I think the writing is really good across the board. I do think it's going to take me some time to get used to this being Joel and Ellie in a live action setting, but I've already largely adapted to it. I just think this is a really well put together episode. I do think after about an hour, I think I started feeling like, checking my magical wristwatch, which doesn't exist, and I was like, all right, like, how much longer is this going? But besides that, like, I really loved it.
You know what's interesting about that, Dory, is me, the guy who's been nitpicking this thing to death, death by 1,000 cuts for this show. When I got to the near the end of it, I was like,
I want more.
Like, is it over?
Yeah.
I don't want it to be
Oh,
over.
I definitely felt
going.
that I felt like a paradox. Like, I was like, man, I don't want the episode to be over, but like at a certain parts during like towards the 3/4 of the episode, I was like, I felt the length at that point.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't. This is my nitpicking mode here.
I didn't expect it to go from like I didn't expect the whole first episode to capture like the apocalypse scene to Joel meeting Ellie, and then all of them going out.
I feel like they handled that very seamlessly. I like better.
I do
this
too.
is one thing
I didn't
think they do better than the video game. We were talking about this earlier. The way that they set up the guy that they're making the trade with, and the reason why Joel is so intent on getting Ellie is so he can get a truck to go see his brother. I feel like is a stronger motivation. Not that it's bad in the game, but I do feel like that's a stronger motivation than the one they had in the game, where he just wanted weapons and whatever.
And the reason they made that change is, I think, I was reading an interview, so I think they said that the reason they made that change wasn't for so much for plot reasons, but because in the game, Joel's this kind of walking arsenal, right? Because it's a video game, you have to feel powerful and everything, and you have to kill a lot of people and things, so you need to feel like that. But in the show, you don't. So they said that it didn't make as much sense for Joel and Tess to be these kind of gun smugglers, these gun runners.
Interesting.
So they made that change for that reason, because in the game, obviously, it's guns they're trying to get back.
Right.
So that's kind of why.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, but I do think it does help the plot. I think it gives Joel more motivation to agree to help out with Ellie. And I mean, I also like this is another minor thing, but I also like that they make the soldier someone that Joel knows, which is not in the game, but they make it the one that he has to knock out and almost kill. I don't think he quite kills him, because I think we still see him breathing after they leave. But the guy that he's making like drug deals with and stuff like that during the first half of the show, or second half, whatever. Second half. I thought that was a nice touch that he actually knew him, and then he has a flashback to Sarah, and like that motivates him to like go fight or flight. I thought that was an excellent touch. I really like that.
That's where adaptations shine, like in a different medium, because video games you really couldn't do that scene in the game, because it doesn't fit the pacing of a video game. But like with a show, you can establish characters like that and with more detail, and the flashback scenes like that. So I agree. I think that scene was better in the show than the game. But
that's also one of those things. That's also one of those things as well, right? Where it's like, and I just thought of this just now. Part 2 uses flashbacks a lot, like not necessarily flashback levels and whole scenes like that, but like those flashbacks of Joel that Ellie gets just for a second.
Yeah.
So it kind of sets that up for the show early on, and they have talked about doing that kind of thing. Now, like making this show now with the knowledge of where it goes in part 2 and implementing those things earlier on, because they can do that now.
Yeah.
And one of those other things was the DVD at the start. Was that, I don't remember the name of it, that Viper action film.
Yes, I noticed that too.
Which is
reference in The Last of Us Part 2.
In part 2, where Ellie's talking
I
with
couldn't
Gina.
believe it when I saw it. I was like, "Wait a second! Isn't that mentioned in like an optional, an optional dialogue section?"
And it's like Joel likes these movies. Is the development there, which
I can't
comes
wait.
from part
I
two.
can't wait to. I really hope they bring the joke book into the show with all the puns.
Yes. Oh my
I'm sure they
god!
will.
I will
Yeah.
become
Do you know what?
insufferable when that episode comes out.
That might be. There was an interview where they said that they have taken one of the collectibles from the game and turned it into like a whole plot device.
Oh my god! Please.
It could be that. I thought it was going to be like dog tags or one of the magazines.
It's gonna be a Wampa fruit.
Like, one of the comics.
It's gonna be a Wampa fruit. That's right.
But yeah, that would be. Wouldn't that be interesting, right?
Oh, good.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool.
That'd be great.
Can
Can we have this marsupial as a pet, please?
wouldn't that be crazy if like the whole show was so serious and like episode 5 there's like a Crash Bandicoot like cameo and he just shows up on screen. Like
They just
somebody
they find
in one of those classic like '90s Crash Bandicoot costumes comes out and he's like a fucking a runner or something.
Oh
is
my
it, no,
God.
it's like a zombie wearing the like mask, like the costume.
Oh my god!
It's a CGI Crash Bandicoot, with wearing like Last of Us outfit and everything, like it's a serious character. Anyway,
I know this episode rocked though. I'm really excited
for the
future of the series, and I'm excited to watch it tomorrow.
I'll stand by this.
Do you know what?
Go ahead.
I'm really excited to like just keep talking because I mean like this is one episode, and we've talked about it for God how long now? Like I can't wait to do this for every single episode.
Yeah, I mean,
we can really dive into these.
Yeah, I don't want to like do every week where we talk about like
an
hour and a half of it, but like we can do like maybe like a quick maybe a quicker 15-minute discussion about it or whatever. Or maybe what we should do is like wait a couple episodes, like do mid-season and then do a final like at the end. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing one every week, we could do like midway and then final.
Yeah,
that might work better.
That's a good compromise.
Better. Yeah.
That way we have more justifiable reasons to be talking about it for longer.
Yeah, because if you go weekly, it's gonna be like, oh, it just gets into too much like nitpicking every little detail, and like it's great for us, but I don't. That might hurt the flow of like when we have other conversations,
Right.
Other topics. Yeah. Anyway, I think this is going to be like if you exclude like the animated adaptations like Castlevania and Arcane and Cyberpunk the anime. I think this is going to be the greatest live action adaptation of all time, as of now. Like even if you have nitpicks and everything, it's still like just a quality show. Like you feel the love for the source material. Obviously, because Neil Druckmann's part of it, but HBO really respected the material here. It doesn't feel like we're just cashing in on the Last of Us hype. It actually feels like they have genuine love for the characters and the setting and the story and everything. So you feel it. And I think the show's going to be incredible. So if we have to nitpick like the smallest things, then the show is near perfect. It's where it really comes down for me. Because like I said, the biggest thing for me is pacing and characters. Is the CGI awful where it completely distracts for me? Like I know the clicker at the end was like it looked a little bit off. It didn't really fit the. I would have been better if they did not even include that. I don't know. It just threw me off a little bit. I'm like, what? Like it just feels out of place. What I'm saying.
Noticed it the first time. Seb had to rewind.
Yeah, like I was like, wait a minute, what? But it's not like a minor nitpick, but it was just like there's some parts of the show where it's like it feels like. It does the horror tropes, like I said, with the old lady as a zombie and the little clicker in the background with the CGI. It just feels samey that I've seen a million times. But again, small things.
What's interesting to me is like you can see like Chernobyl has such a unique visual style, I think, and you can really see that in this show as well.
It does, yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
It has it's filmed like it's very high quality cinematic. It feels like it has a higher. You can tell the budget has the HBO budget. You just see the difference immediately. Like when you watch, for example, The Flash compared to Superman and Lois, you can tell Superman and Lois is an HBO show. Like they have the HBO budget, because it just looks a million times better. Then you watch a CW show and you're like, oh my god, this is the most cheap bullshit, ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And the same thing with Last of Us and like The Walking Dead. Like you can tell, Walking Dead, the budget's gone, because it's like something's off here. It just feels cheapness, like the sets and what they're wearing. This feels like high quality, like from top to bottom. And that's how Naughty Dog games are. Like they're like the highest of detail and quality. I mean, The Last of Us, you can spend hours just walking around every location and look at posters and the window and the doors and the grass. And yeah, like I said, it's just quality. It's just,
I mean, they use shaky cam a lot, but I think it works.
Yeah,
like it didn't annoy me or distract me. But I think for The Last of Us, it fits.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Shaky cam is awful when it's used wrong, like Transformers movie where it gives me a headache and there's a million cuts and it's like. But yeah, I agree. It does it really well. The cinematography of this is fantastic. If there's one thing HBO is always going to do, I don't care if the writing's awful in every show, is the cinematography. Like I don't think you've ever seen Westworld, right?
I've seen the first season a long time ago.
Okay, the first season's amazing. So you can't if you judged it by season 2, 3, and 4, because it's totally different. I mean, totally different. It's in the future and all that. The writing is garbage, but the cinematography is just mind blowing. Like you can sit there and just look at the scenery. Same thing with Game of Thrones season 8. Season 8 was. Have you seen season 8? It's hot garbage. It's the writing is just atrocious, but the cinematography was like, it deserved an Emmy for what, and it did. I think it did win an Emmy. Because
it's funny though you say that, because there's one shot of like Daenerys like with the dragon behind her and it's got the wings and stuff, and
that's one everybody loves. That's the one everybody loves.
Yeah, like I see so much praise about that shot, but it's like it's such a
on the nose
cliche.
It's too on the nose,
you know.
Yeah.
So but yeah, like that's I think that's why cinematography in TV stands out to me a lot, because cinematography in TV shows can be so boring so much of the time.
Yeah, and that's the problem with The Walking Dead. It's like pan shot.
Yeah.
It's like camera A, camera B, camera. When people are talking, it's just bland. The camera doesn't do like these cool things. It just does. And
exactly. It's like
that's the problem. Like the Star Wars prequels. Like for example, when people are talking, it's just camera A, camera
it's
B.
It's just like Mass
A,
Effect dialogue.
Yeah, it feels, yeah.
You know,
when you're playing a video game, when you're picking choices, it's just one camera.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like, this is one of those shows where it's like they really use the cinematography to give it that unique feeling.
Yeah,
and it has that. So
yeah, like this show just does everything well. Like even like I said, the nitpicks, but overall, it just nails everything. I think pretty much. Like, it's near perfect for me.
It's such a weird thing though, like. Because I mean, I'm nitpicking the shit out of it, and as I'm watching it, there are these things that annoy me and pull me out of the experience so much. But I'm still dying to see the rest of it. It's still the best thing I'm watching.
I'm very excited. This is a show. I want to be clear. I maybe I said this before too, but I'll say it again. This was a show I was completely indifferent about, and in no particular reason. I love Pedro Pascal and The Mandalorian. I don't really know Bella Ramsey, so neither way on her. But I feel like I've just absorbed so much Last of Us content. I mean, through this podcast, through the games, through like just being a fan. I was just like, felt so burnt out on The Last of Us, especially after The Last of Us 2 and that awful cycle of discussions from every single direction. And so when they announced the show, I was like, that's cool. I don't really care. Because
our opinion is
But I just want to say, but I've seen the show now. I've seen the first episode, and like it reminds me why I love this goddamn franchise or the series or whatever so much. It's just so impactful, so good, and I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm excited to watch more.
I mean, I still feel like does the show need to exist? No, like I think I got The Last of Us Part 1 is already a masterpiece. I didn't need an adaptation.
At this fucking point, we're on two things from The Last of Us that don't need to fucking exist. Part 1 remake, and now the TV show, and eventually we'll get Part 3. And honestly, you could argue Part 2 doesn't need to exist.
Well, Part 1 only they only remade Part 1 because they had to change the Doctor's
Yeah.
character model to fit
Well,
Abby's dad.
that, and they wanted
That's the
to
only
chase-
reason. They only remade it just for that one reason.
They wanted to chase the profits of the TV show too. They wanted to promote the TV show and vice versa.
Because you're not going to tell me Neil Druckmann planned that. Like they had to
No,
like come up like, oh yeah, we can tie the Doctor getting killed to Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I mean,
it wasn't planned.
I'm not saying that's a
But,
bad thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But like, what was I gonna say?
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, part 2 was like, well, before that came out, I was like, you know, the ending to part 1 is just so perfect. This game doesn't need a sequel. Like,
lot of people-
I was saying that. Everyone was saying that.
Yeah, everybody was saying that.
But now part 2 is my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
So
I think because I know like when we finished part 2, we were like, do we need a part 3? It ended so well. I think we can trust Naughty Dog at this point because we said that about the first
Agreed.
game and
Agreed.
they amped it up in the second game.
Yeah.
So that we can trust part 3. I think they're going to do a part 3 because they have to. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's so big of a franchise, they're not going to just not jump on the popularity of it.
I know there are numerous issues with autorism, but I think that this franchise is like Neil Druckmann's baby, right? I think I'll be sad if they ever try and continue the franchise after he stops working on it, because
Yeah, that would feel really weird.
I just feel like it's the quality of it and like the way the franchise works and how it's written and stuff. It's tied so much to him and his ideas.
Yeah, is there a history of PlayStation doing that? What a marquee franchise. So
Yeah, I mean Uncharted.
right, but that's true, I guess. But
I mean Neil Druckmann was like
it was part of it, though.
he was like a lead writer on 2. So like
yeah, go ahead.
So I mean like he did come up
Didn't
with his
that,
title at the same time.
I'm sorry. I'm going to call her the woman because I don't remember her name, but she was
Amy
also
Hennig.
very. Yes, Amy Hennig. I'm sorry for forget. Yeah, Amy Hennig. She was also a huge part of it, and eventually they let her. Well, they didn't let her go, but she moved on, or.
Yeah.
No, what I'm
And
saying
like
is what I'm saying is they're not going to like outsource The Last of Us to another developer in Sony. Like they're gonna, it's Naughty Dog or nothing.
No, right? No, absolutely.
They'll respect the
But-
franchise. That's what I'm saying.
The Uncharted thing is an interesting comparison point as well, though, because Neil Druckmann comes on to direct Uncharted 4, and I mean you can argue. I mean, well, you can't argue. It's a fact. Uncharted 4 has a vastly different tone from the previous 3 Uncharted games.
Yeah, I
And,
think
like-
Uncharted 4 is my favorite of the franchise.
Uncharted 4 is
because,
a great game, but it feels so different. If they did that with The Last of Us, I just don't. I mean, I don't think it is that. I don't think it is that series that
loses
can get
the
away
heart.
with that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like I want part 3, and then I want it to be over, and I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Me too.
Agreed.
I don't think everything needs to be a series. You know what I mean? Like God of War got overbloated because we got like so many God of War games. You know what I mean?
And it didn't help that they did all those handheld games too.
which are great games, by the way. But no, they actually are great games.
No,
They-
I'm just laughing. I just thought it was a funny
Yeah.
addition. But yeah, I mean, but there's just so fucking many of them. I just think you
Yeah.
could have done God of War 1,
But-
2, and 3, and maybe
but
one
it's-
prequel spin-off or
although
something.
it's so rare to like get a character people always criticize of being a rage monster and make him humanized.
Yes.
That rarely happens.
To me, the new it's another tangent, but to me, the new God of War games are completely different. They're a new franchise entirely. I know it's based on the previous ones, and
Yeah.
obviously they have references, but I mean, like, I don't even consider this the same God of War franchise
It's
anymore. It's so different. It's so
Yeah,
different,
so
and
I'm
in a
saying-
good way. In a good way.
This my thing with Uncharted too is like I don't want a new Uncharted game with Drake's daughter. I don't want
Yeah,
that.
I don't either. I don't.
Like,
Also, it feels way too
let it
girl
end.
powery, which I have no problem with, obviously. But it feels, when corporations are like, "Oh, girl power," and it feels really inauthentic. Like when they did
Like that
that
scene in,
with Infinity
Endgame.
War,
yes,
Endgame. Yep, exactly what I was thinking, James.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a lot of issues with writers, like a lot of writers where they use people as tokens, like
Yes.
and
And again,
the character.
no problem with it as a general thing, but
Yes.
just corporations
What I
sometimes
mean
just
is-
tokenize it.
Like Marvel, for example, like in the comic books, they would make the gay characters' only identity is that they're gay. Like they
Yes,
have
that sucks.
nothing to them except they're just gay. Like the token, like why can't the gay person just be the action hero and have the focus like on the actual story, and then have them also be gay at the same time?
Yeah,
but,
they do the same. They do that with Ellie.
But instead of doing that, yeah,
she's a full character and she's a lesbian, and she's not defined by her sexuality. That's just an important part of her.
Instead, the writers just make them as tokens, and the whole like every scene they're in is like a sex scene, or like it's always about them want to get married. It's like, why? There's more to people than just like these tokenism. But
I agree. But how did we get on this again?
I don't know.
No, because we were just saying like how like we worry that like the writing is gonna like they're gonna go along like after the story is ending, they're gonna go along, make their own, like add another thing to it, and the writing is just gonna fall off. It's not gonna feel the same. And I'm saying that about Uncharted. I don't want Uncharted 5 to be Drake's daughter.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, the Uncharted, the Drake's daughter thing.
Yeah. But we can probably start wrapping it up now.
Yeah. I mean, just to say, like, I'm glad The Last of Us show got such great reviews, because even if I am still not confident 100% that they can faithfully adapt part 2, I still be convincing of that. I am incredibly interested to see them try it.
I mean, at worst,
I'm really glad.
Yeah. At worst, we can say, "Oh, season 1 was amazing." Like, it'd be like Westworld, where season 1 is just a fantastic show, and maybe the other season wasn't as good, but it was still good. If it gets like that, I'll be happy. If it's like
look at that viewership, like it drew almost 5 million viewers in just one.
No,
it's a big hit for HBO.
Oh,
right off the bat.
This is the renaissance. That's the like that was our conversation. It was like, this is gonna be the renaissance of Last of Us now. I mean, it's gonna be as big as it's ever been. And they're itching. The Sony execs are itching to cash in on the
fungal infection called capitalism.
Yeah, so we're getting the multiplayer game. We're gonna get factions, and we're gonna get part 3, and then we have the TV show. There's something else that's gonna pop up somewhere, so that we're not gonna expect. And I hope, and that's my worry, is that window is like, let's say part 3 comes out in 2 years. I don't know. Let's just say, and the show is in season 3, and it's starting to wrap up now. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's only a 3 to 4 season episode, and then The Last of Us is just like almost over, and it's like, oh shit, now we need to do something with the franchise again. And that's the part that scares me, is like, that's where the bullshit happens. Like, that's the capitalism kicks in, and it's like, now we gotta drag this shit out as much as we can.
I mean, let's be real. The capitalism already kicked in a long time ago with the remake of part 1, and now TV show, and then
But was it a cash grab? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it the best version of Last of Us? Absolutely. Like, if you have not played The Last of Us Part 1 ever, that's the version you should play.
I thought you were talking about the TV show for a second.
No, the show.
Best version?
No, the game.
But yeah.
That's the version you should play. I mean, the visuals are absolutely incredible. I mean, incredible. The gameplay plays exactly the same, but that feels like that game feels like a next gen. It looks like a next gen game. So, play it when it's on sale, Doria. I think you should play it like when it's like $30, $25. It might be on Plus service at some point. It probably will be. I recommend you go through that. I mean,
I think it is on the extra tier. I think it's already there, but I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. It's on the premium tier as a trial. You can play like the first 3 hours.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. I got the platinum 7 hours, so it's not like you have to play another 40-hour game. Like Last of Us is a short game when you know what you're doing.
Sure.
Anyway, we're getting on a tangent again. Overall, fantastic show. Very rarely do you see the audience rating and the critics ratings be like as high as they are. Like, we're talking like high 90s here. HBO just has a monster hit on its hands, and HBO knew that. I think HBO was like, they're very smart with this. So yeah, like, we all like the show, like, we all love it, really. I mean, James has more negative than Dory and I, but he still likes it really well. So
that's the last thing I wanted to mention as well. I know we've got to wrap up, but it's like, I rewatched the episode, and I a lot of the things that bothered me the first time didn't bother me the second time I watched it because I knew what to expect and that kind of thing. The only issue with that is I'm gonna have to watch every fucking episode twice to
Oh no,
get that much enjoyment.
You're gonna watch like every episode like probably 10 times.
Oh yeah,
Honestly.
by the time season 2's out, yeah. But like every week I'm gonna have to watch these episodes twice.
Yeah.
To not have as many issues with
That's
them.
what you should do in every
Yeah,
HBO
that's
show,
fine.
really, because HBO shows are meant to be watched like once or two, like 2 or 3 times because there's so much details in them that you miss. Like Game of Thrones, there was so much subtlety that you would totally miss, and I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, but
with
I'm
this
not
show.
watching season 8. Two
Oh
times.
no! I went through all of Game of Thrones again, and yeah, as someone that knew everything was gonna happen and all the details and everything, the things you missed the first time is mind blowing. Like I'm like, you, that's why you should always like if you chose quality, you should watch it again because just when you know what's gonna happen, you can actually spend time to like look at the details and like oh shit, oh yeah, that they built this character up here. This was nice foreshadowing. Oh, this was nice, like details and stuff. Anyway, the dip in quality in Game of Thrones was like massive. Like it's insane. Like season 4 was so peak Game of Thrones. It was like the best show of all time probably, and then it went typical, generic. We got to do Avengers Endgame, big events, and dragon battles. But we're going on tangent. But you get what I'm saying. I hope.
But no, that
I don't want
makes an interesting.
Yeah.
That makes an interesting point because again, I know you didn't read the interviews. I will mention in interviews they said that they are not going to do a Game of Thrones for the Last of Us. They're not going to go ahead of the source material if they finish season 3, because they said part 2 will be 2 seasons. If they finish season 3 and part 3 isn't out by then, they'll just wait. They won't do filler. They'll just wait for part 3 to be out and then adapt it. Which is obviously the right approach.
Yes. Game of Thrones is the one example where it should have went on longer. Usually when shows go on too long, it's a problem. But Game of Thrones is a show that should have been on like 10 seasons because they rushed everything at the end. But that's different than Last of Us because Last of Us doesn't have a giant world to build. It's more about the characters, the survivors, more so like everything else. Anyway, I don't want to go on for too long after that now. So next week, I mean not next week, the next episode we're gonna talk about the Dead Space remake. It's finally gonna be out. It's gonna be in February. I'm also gonna talk about the season. That game looks great. And is anything you guys want to plug before we finish?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch and Twitter at dford192. I played Adios recently, which is a very short narrative game about being a pig farmer trying to get out of a deal with the mafia. Very interesting game, very short game, only an hour and a half it took me to beat. So check that out. And I also have all the highlights out for my As Dusk Falls playthrough. I'll be doing more backlog stuff over the coming weeks and streaming that as well on Twitch at dford192.
I don't have anything personal of interest or of note to plug, but I do want to tell everyone to go and watch the movie After Sun because I saw it in cinemas a couple days ago from Scottish director Charlotte Wells. Very good film, makes me proud.
Everybody go see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Also a good film, but not as good. I'm sorry.
You can follow me at LittleSeb93, and also you can listen to the podcast on Spotify and YouTube. All right, everybody have a good night. Once again, I say it's going to be a short episode, and it's not. So have a good night.
Running theme. We're consistent.
Oh, yeah.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.